Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of What If Deku Took All for One's Hand? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. How stupid, a certain green-haired boy thought as he looked at a huge television on a building. The television showed a hero and a villain fighting. The villain was in a messed-up suit while the hero was a deformed and skinny man. All might. Don't give up. The people shouted as they cheered with all their might. That was to be expected. The villain stood toe-to-toe against the #1 hero. How could they not be afraid? With tears on their eyes, people from all around Japan shouted with all their might, hoping that their hero would win. Everyone except one. Midoriya Izuku, one of the few people who were quirkless, watched the fight and actually felt happy that All Might was receiving a beating. He used to idolize the #1 hero and until the very same idol crushed his dreams. If you want to help others, then you could also become a police officer. He remembered those words as if it was yesterday. For some reason, he didn't care what happens to the world. All he wanted was that the so-called symbol of peace would be erased from the world. That was why he looked at the screen with hateful eyes. Die, he thought as if trying to curse him. All Might's arm turned muscular and he charged at the man. The man's arm enlarged and aimed it at All Might. However, All Might managed to trick him by directing all of his force at his other hand. When his fist connected to the man's face, a huge and powerful gust of wind dispersed which was almost like a tornado. Silence engulfed everyone as they waited for what would happen next. The symbol of peace raised his fist and everyone cheered. "TC, heroes always win. I knew it. That's why I couldn't win at anything," Izuku thought. Then the unexpected happened. As everyone was cheering for the exhausted All Might, black ooze covered the fallen man. All Might realized it too late and when he tried to punch him, the man already disappeared. He punched the ground in desperation until his hand bled and even though it couldn't be heard, the people felt him screaming. A smile formed on Izuku's face. The villain actually shattered the hero's mind and will. Everyone felt terrified. Their hero was already weakened and a dangerous villain was still on the loose. It was a horrible night. ####. It took time for the people to calm down and Izuku was on his way home. He was in a good mood since that person was humiliated, crushed, and weakened. How he wished to hear All Might scream. He bet that it was the same scream his heart made when he heard that he couldn't become a hero. Izuku hated heroes and quirks. His childhood friend was a nice person until he received a powerful quirk. And when Izuku's quirklessness became known, he became a target of bullying from his childhood friend. And that same childhood friend received praise for his powerful quirk from heroes which made him aspire to become one. Society ignored the weak like him and praised the strong like his friend. He then heard a sound from an alley. Izuku looked and there was a shift in the shadows. "Is someone there?" he asked. Suddenly he felt an urge to go there. And then he noticed his feet were moving without his consent. Izuku saw what was there. Or more specifically, who was there. It was the same man who fought All Might. The man in the suit. The man who had a strange quirk. "Hello, young one," he said in a weak voice. Instead of saying, "Nope," and running away, Izuku replied, "Hello, sir." The man had no eyes and had a mask covering his mouth, if he had one. "I sense hatred from you. Would you tell me why?" he asked. And before he knew it, Izuku told him his life story. He told everything from the bullying to his anger at All Might to his wish that the villain would win. "You wanted me to win?" he asked. "Yes. It's because I want to see All Might suffer. He once said that pros risk their lives to combat evil. I want him to lose his life doing that," Izuku honestly answered to his surprise. "I'll be honest, young man. I've been using my quirk on you to know your intentions. I felt strong hatred in you and thought you might be suitable to continue my will." "Your quirk? I thought your quirk was shooting those shockwaves." The man chuckled. "I have multiple quirks because of my main quirk, All for One. All for One allows me to steal quirks. That's impossible. And yet here I am. It's the only thing that is keeping me alive despite my injuries." Izuku then paused for a while as he realized something. "What will you gain by telling me this?" he asked. "I will die soon. My injuries are too much and this body can no longer support it. I want you to continue my will. And that is to destroy this society of heroes. To show that everything will be better under one powerful ruler. To prove them that everyone is equal against a superior being," the man said as he let out a laugh. He then coughed. Izuku couldn't believe it. The very man that brought All Might to a corner was offering him unimaginable power. The power to destroy the world was being offered to him. "You are all for one, right? I'm Izuku Midoriya. I'm sick and tired of this world. Sick and tired of heroes. Sick and tired of people. I will continue your will," Izuku told the man. The man used the remaining of his strength to conjure a knife. "My quirk is an evil one. As one of the 10 commandments of the Christian religion states, 'Thou shalt not steal,' and yet my quirk steals the identity, the very thing that makes a person, their quirks. And the only way to pass it down is to kill me," All for One explained. "Kill you? Then wouldn't All Might get it?" Izuku asked. "No. I must willingly be killed. I know my quirk very well as I've lived for decades. Now you will hold this valuable quirk and do your job." Izuku took the knife from the man's hand and got close to him. He positioned it around his neck. "You can become a villain." And with those as his last words, All for One had his throat slit. Hatred. A powerful and dangerous feeling. The very same hatred was in Izuku's heart. "I'm sorry, Izuku. Take a swan dive off the building. You could also become a police officer." He had enough. Izuku knew that his dream was unrealistic. He knew that already, but he still held on, until his idol, the idol he loved very much, dealt the final blow to his heart. All of his anger and frustration were directed at All Might to the point it turned into hatred. And then hatred corrupted his heart. He hated his childhood friend, he hated his classmates, and he hated the society which shunned the weak. And now he had the power to crush that society. One was in his hands. He now had a quirk and he knew how to use it as if it was there the whole time. The power to steal and the power to give. Much like its name, everything was for one person. All quirks will be Izuku's. The question was, what quirk should he take first? Apparently, the only thing that was transferred to him was All for One. The man's other stolen quirks died with him. Izuku grabbed the knife which he used to kill the man. It then dawned into him. He actually killed a man. Even though that man was a dangerous villain, Izuku still killed him without hesitation. "What did I do?" he asked in horror. He ran towards his home. "Izuku, have you seen the TV? It's All Might." He dashed. His mom was cut off when he waved his hand. "I know, Mom," he told her and ran to his room. Izuku took out the knife and stared at it. A certain feeling emerged in him. The feeling of responsibility weighted him. He took a man's life and swore he'll continue his will. Izuku didn't know what he was thinking at that time, which made him agree. However, he didn't find it too bad. Destroying the society of heroes which he hated would be nice. Lying on his bed, he thought of how he should plan his move. He already accepted the responsibility and the man trusted him. He closed his eyes and felt that he only had one quirk, which was All for One. The very first thing he had to do was to get stronger, which meant he must steal quirks. Then another problem rose. How could he steal quirks? He already knew how to steal quirks, but how can he make a person's quirk allow to be stolen? It was no use thinking about it, so he decided to get out of his house and decided to walk around, watching for any prey he could use. And then there was one. A drunken man sleeping on the road. Izuku looked around, and when he was sure there was no one, he dragged the man to the alleyway. "Who are ya?" the man asked. Izuku looked at him coldly. He touched the man's head and breathed deeply, which confused the man. Then, indescribable pain engulfed the man. He felt that his skin was being peeled, his body was being burned, and his innards being turned to mush. After a few seconds of pain, he felt normal again. What did you do?" the man asked. Izuku took out the knife and the man paled. Judging from his suit and the handbag he was carrying, the man looked like an office worker getting home from work. He was probably invited to drink by his boss. Please don't," the man pleaded when he saw the knife. Izuku knew he couldn't let the man live. If he was right, then the man would be quirkless and news of a man becoming quirkless would spread fast. He wouldn't want that, especially if he was quirk hunting. This was the only way for his vision to come true. The man might have a family waiting for him. An angry housewife, a child, and maybe even a dog or a cat would be hoping for him to return at their doorstep. And Izuku was going to take it all away. Would he really do it? Would he be willing to do it for a stranger's ambition? For his ambition? Izuku swung down the knife. The answer was yes. He left the scene and walked towards an empty lot. The green-haired boy concentrated and identified the quirk he stole. Quirk, ray gun. The user can shoot concentrated beams of energy from his fingers. This made Izuku smile. He got a decent quirk. He pointed at a can that was a few meters away and shot a beam. The beam exploded on impact, which damaged the can. Izuku wondered why the man didn't want to be a hero despite a quirk like this. But it was no use wondering about what the dead was thinking. It was his second kill and it was all for getting power. Izuku knew he wouldn't be able to stop soon. He must continue on getting stronger and stronger so that he will become powerful enough to overthrow this society of heroes. But until that time comes, he decided to come home and rest for the night. ####. Toshinori. Keep calm, a short old man told a skinny man. This is the second time he escaped me. All because of my recklessness. He must be out there, plotting his next moves as we speak, All Might said. With those injuries, I doubt he'll be able to survive, and if he does, he'll be in no shape to fight you again. You saw how his body deteriorated. I doubt he'll appear anytime soon. That's why you must train your successor so that when All for One returns, he'll be ready, Gran Torino replied. ####. All for One was immediately found after a citywide search. He was found dead in an alley. The entire populace was relieved to know that the villain died. However, All Might couldn't help but feel uneasy. After all, the cause of death wasn't a punch, but instead, it was a slit on his throat. All Might didn't know why there was a slit there and what purpose it served. His intuition told him that the war between All for One and One for All wasn't over yet. Relax, Toshinori, Gran Torino said. But I find it strange too, but we might be overthinking things. But that doesn't mean you will take it easy against your successor. Who knows what evil is out there now that All for One is gone? You're right. During the same day, another murder was reported. A man was murdered in an alley with a stab wound. Sadly, there were no witnesses and there appears to be no motive in killing since his money and important documents were intact. Izuku watched the news as he ate his breakfast. Oh dear. First that strong villain and now a murder, Inko asked. Yeah. Heroes are becoming incompetent, Izuku said and hid a smile. It's been a few weeks since Izuku received All for One and he has been using it frequently. Every night, he would be quirk hunting. Prowling in the dark, he would watch for any unguarded men, mostly salary men and drunken office workers, and then immobilize them. After that, he would take their quirks and proceed to killing them. This hasn't gone unnoticed as more and more victims fell to Izuku's hunt. A few newspapers already featured the killing spree and already suggested that there might be a serial killer on the loose. Although there hasn't been an official statement from the police, a lot of rumors were floating around. Wives feared for their husbands and children didn't want to leave their father's side. All of these woes and cries fell on Izuku's deaf ears. He didn't care whether he caused grief for many people. Izuku even attended his neighbor's funeral who was his victim a few days prior. And since he was a quirkless nobody, no one would even suspect him of being the one who killed them. His heart already became numb and... However, Izuku ran into a problem. All of the quirks he stole were not that useful. Superior senses, danger detector, adrenaline rush, and ray gun were the only useful ones he got, but they are not that good in combat. His other quirks were useless, such as flexible fingers, light show, and flare. He understood why the people he killed were just simple citizens. If they only had the quirk to become a hero, then they would have become one. I need to step up my game, Izuku told himself. If civilians didn't have strong quirks, then he shouldn't bother stealing them. After all, what was the point of stealing from the poor? It was time for him to go big time. Izuku would now steal from the people who mocked him. It was time to steal from the so-called heroes. ####. The police and some heroes were in a conference room. On the table were files and photos of Izuku's victims. What makes you say that the culprit is the same in all of these murders? A pro-hero asked. According to the autopsy, the knife wound they received all indicated that they were from the same type of knife. And since they were all found murdered in the same area, it would be logical to think that one person did this, the investigator said. Or maybe there's a cult that uses the same knives in carrying out murders, another pro-hero added as a joke to which no one laughed. But the problem we have here is the motive. It isn't just robbery since all of their belongings and money was untouched. We also couldn't find any connection between the victims aside from they all come home late, the investigator said. Maybe it's an indiscriminate attack? What if the culprit is hunting? A female pro-hero asked. Now that's creepy. You're saying that there's a psycho out there who hunts people for fun, the first pro-hero asked. We also came to the same conclusion. There's a chance that the culprit is hunting and Mizudafu is his or her hunting ground. He or she might be hunting indiscriminately or maybe aiming for something, the investigator replied. Maybe he or she is hoping to spread fear or is getting revenge against society. I have faced many villains who think like that, a pro-hero told everyone. We also noticed something. The culprit only attacks at night and when there are no witnesses. Also, the culprit attacks lone people walking and according to autopsy, most of the victims were drunk at the time of their death, the investigator said. How's that supposed to help us? We believe that the culprit doesn't have a strong quirk. If he or she is just targeting off-guard and lone individuals, he or she must not have a quirk that is suited for battle. However, that is just a mere speculation, so I advise you to be careful, the investigator said. What should we tell the public? Sooner or later, they'll ask questions about the murders. The media is already adding oil to the fire by spreading rumors of a serial killer. If this continues, the public will panic, a hero asked. That is why we must resolve this quickly. We have a press conference 3 days from now, and that's the limit of what our public relations officer could handle before the media storms in and asks questions. After all, serial killers are a hot topic for the media, the investigator answered. Everyone in the room silently nodded. Everyone. The only leads we got are, our culprit is in Mizudafu, he or she uses a knife as a weapon, he or she hunts lone individuals, and he or she may have a weak quirk. Be careful in your investigations. The police will also do their part, the investigator told everyone, and with that, the meeting was dismissed. A hero with a black leather jacket and a black hat was drinking tea. He sat down and thought about the meeting. He was the bizarre hero, Cho-Cho. He was approached by a fellow pro-hero, a girl with green hair and yellow eyes. She was the plant hero, Wild Ivy. A serial killer, huh? This was probably due to All Might's downfall, Wild Ivy said. Yeah. And to top of it all, none of the strong pro-heroes are on this case. It's up to us to go against a serial killer, Cho-Cho replied. At least we have a chance to prove ourselves. Cho-Cho smiled. Wild Ivy was his classmate when they were in a small-time hero school. They struggled hard and after a few years, they became independent. The world of heroes was tough. One had to be popular and at the same time, be strong. Wild Ivy was beautiful and had a good quirk. He knew that she will be famous one day. Cho-Cho thought about the serial killer and then a plan hatched in his brain. ####. It was already late. Inko was already fast asleep and Izuku left his apartment. He conveniently had a sleeping quirk which made the victim go into deep sleep. It worked by dropping a white liquid produced by his fingers into a glass of water, and after a few hours, the person would feel drowsy and drift off to dreamland. That was why he could leave the house without any worries that his mother might wake up and notice that he was gone. He was on top of an alley, waiting for someone to come by. Izuku was sticking on a wall using a quirk named Sticky Fingers. Then he saw his target for the night. A man in his late 20s was walking in a wobbly manner with a sake bottle on his hand. It was an easy prey for Izuku. After all, he just had to stab a drunkard, steal the quirk, and finish off the victim. He silently crawled down from the wall and walked up to him slowly. Then his danger detector flared up. He managed to dodge in time before a spectral fist appeared and almost managed to punch him. Izuku was confused. The man was no longer wobbly but instead, he stood straight. Also, a spectral being appeared beside the man. It had long black hair and was violet in color. With its muscular body, it intimidated Izuku a bit. Good grief. I can't believe that my plan worked on the first try. And I can't believe that the serial killer we've been after is a kid, the man said. Izuku was silent and cursed himself for being careless. In fact, he was careless enough to not put on a mask. You have nowhere to run. I'm stronger than you and I've seen your face. Even if you're underage, you will still face justice, the man said. Justice? Really now? Who's going to drag me then? Izuku asked in a deep voice. Who else but me? I swear on the name of the pro-hero Chocho that I will put you to justice. Izuku used his ray gun and fired off a beam at Chocho. However, the spectral being blocked it and charged at him. OSA, the spectral being shouted and jabbed. Because of his superior senses, Izuku barely managed to dodge the fast jab. Go! Stand platinum! OSA, OSA, the spectral being shouted as it jabbed. Izuku managed to dodge them all and shot off a beam at the spectral being. However, it wasn't even phased and continued attacking. He used one of his quirks, smoke release, and smoke covered the battlefield. I thought his quirk was just shooting off those beams. If my eyes didn't fool me, the smoke came from his body, Chocho thought. He then felt a sharp pain on his back, and when the smoke cleared, he saw Izuku was behind him and was holding a bloody knife. What did you do? Chocho asked. I teleported behind you. Unless someone is looking at me, I can teleport to short distances, Izuku explained. That's your quirk? So those things were just party tricks? Chocho asked again. No. Those are my quirks too. What? I have multiple quirks, Izuku said and touched Chocho's head. Pain engulfed him. He felt that every single bone he had was being crushed, his blood was being boiled, and his brain was bursting. After a few seconds, the pain was no more. Chocho returned to his senses and became aware of the situation. The green-haired serial killer was in front of him and he was going to get killed if he doesn't make a move. Stand platinum, he shouted. Nothing appeared. Stand platinum, he shouted again. What's going on? Chocho asked in his head. Oh, you mean this? Stand platinum. Izuku shouted, and the very same spectral being that was attacking Izuku appeared. What? Chocho asked in horror. Stand platinum unleashed a barrage of punches on Chocho while yelling, OSA. Chocho was down on the ground and groveled. Who are you? Chocho asked. Who am I? That's right. Who am I? Izuku wondered for a bit. He then decided on a name. I am All for One. He swung his knife down. News of Chocho's death spread like wildfire. Because of this, the police could no longer hold the media back and released the information that a serial killer was on the loose. Panic swept across the populace, especially those in Mizurufu. Office workers were now dismissed early and pro-heroes were told to watch their back. The police officers were working hard to catch the serial killer before he or she causes more damage. And knowing all of these were caused by him, Izuku felt happy. He actually made a difference in society and his first step towards his goal was complete. The downfall of society was already starting the moment the public lost trust in the police for not informing them about the serial killer, and they were questioning the abilities of heroes. They feared him. In the past, there was a dangerous villain who struck fear to the heroes and was known as the hero killer. But Izuku was different. Citizens and heroes feared him. Mostly citizens were afraid of him while the heroes were aware and cautious of him. But soon, Izuku will strike fear in all of the heroes' hearts. Stand platinum, Izuku said, and a violet muscular spectral being with long black hair appeared. He smiled as he looked at his first powerful quirk. Because of All for One, he will immediately know the capabilities of any quirk he steals and how to use them. There was a knock on his bedroom door and Izuku willed Stand Platinum to disappear. Izuku. Dinner is ready, Inko told him. Yes, Mom, Izuku replied. ###. I can't believe it, Chocho was done in, a pro hero asked. His quirk was powerful and he had amazing combat abilities. I even expected him to rise among the ranks in a few months, another hero asked. Wild Ivy wanted to cry. She was actually close to Cho-Cho during their school days and even developed feelings for him. And when they worked under the same agency, she was delighted since she wouldn't get separated from him. She even thought of asking him out once they become big-time heroes. But now, it was all gone. Regret filled her heart. She wanted to at least tell him how she felt. But he was killed by that serial killer. And she will put that serial killer to justice. Alright everyone. As you've known, Cho-Cho is now dead, the investigator said, silencing the room. Cho-Cho was a good man and a praiseworthy hero. But I'm not here to mourn for him. Those are what funerals are for. Instead, I am here to find whoever killed him and put that person behind bars. And I assume you people want the same thing as me, the investigator added. Everyone read the files that were handed out to them. It contained the information of the victims, which also included the late Cho-Cho. Wild Ivy almost cried when she saw the man was among those who died. The same type of knife was used to stab Cho-Cho according to autopsy, and so, it's safe to assume that it's the same culprit. And like before, we couldn't find any connection between the victims, so the culprit must be indiscriminately killing. This time, we found out that he or she must be strong enough to take down a pro hero. Whatever switched the culprit from targeting civilians to targeting heroes, we don't know. And as usual, there are no witnesses, the investigator explained. So you're basically saying that we have no leads except that we know that the culprit hunts in Mizudafu, a pro hero said. Sadly, the culprit is very careful. His hunting methods catches civilians off guard. However, we found out one thing in analyzing Cho-Cho's body. It appears that he received injuries from a fight before he died. That means that the culprit made a mistake and failed to kill Cho-Cho unnoticed, the investigator replied. However, the culprit must have a powerful quirk to be able to defeat Cho-Cho's stand platinum. With that, a question appears in our mind. Why would the culprit use a knife? The investigator asked. The others thought deeply. Maybe it's for a ritual or something. I read cases that some psychos kill for ritual purposes. Maybe the knife is a relic or something, a pro hero said. How foolish. It's probably because the culprit's quirk has something to do with knives, a female pro hero told him. That's right. We are to move under the assumption that the culprit has a knife-based quirk. That is why I requested a certain hero to join our investigation, the investigator said, and the door opened. A muscular man with blonde hair that was in a buzz cut entered the room. He wasn't wearing anything on his top except for some gauntlets. Chains were wrapped around his waist, and he was wearing black shoes that had a spike on their soles. That's the resisting hero, Crystal Spike, a pro hero said in awe. What's a big shot like him doing here? Another. Why are you asking that question? Of course I would be here. A serial killer is dangerous for our society. I will gladly help if it means returning the citizens' lives to peace, Crystal Spike said. Crystal Spike Senpai, Wild Ivy shouted. Wild Ivy? I know. Cho-Cho was a good underclassman. I saw his potential and helped him out. That's why I'll be the one to bring the culprit down, Crystal Spike told her. Now that's enough. Let's continue the meeting, the investigator said. ####. Night fell and it was time for Izuku to hunt. His mother was already fast asleep because of one of his quirks. He learned his lesson already, and so he put on the motorcycle helmet he bought. After all, he couldn't risk having his identity be revealed while he was weak. Izuku crept along the alleys and sighed. Ever since the police released the information that a serial killer was on the loose, it was difficult to target lone victims. He thought of snagging 2 or 3 at once, but there was a huge risk of having one of the targets running away since he didn't have a restraining quirk yet. He saw a green-haired girl walking alone. Even though it leaves a bad taste in his mouth, Izuku already killed women. And that woman was no exception. He crawled down from the wall and he was behind her. Vines sprouted from the ground and wrapped around him. Izuku struggled, but it was no use. The vines were too strong. Judging from your knife and how you snuck up on me, you must be the serial killer. You must underestimating pros to think you can kill us with those skills, the woman shouted angrily. The woman panted. Tell me, Are you the one who killed Cho-Cho? She asked. Izuku was thinking of a way to get out of his pinch. An idea popped in his mind. That worthless excuse for a hero? I killed him. Quite easily, in fact, Izuku answered mockingly. The woman trembled in rage and tears were in her eyes. The tears which she tried hard to stop were leaking out. I am Wild Ivy. Know that name as the hero who brought you to jail, Wild Ivy shouted and got close to Izuku. He smiled and Wild Ivy noticed it too late. A spectral being delivered an uppercut. The vines around Izuku loosened and he got away from it. However, the woman must not live. She saw Stan Platinum. That was Stan Platinum. Why do you have him? Wild Ivy asked. Stan Platinum charged at the hero and punched her. More vines grew out of the ground and wrapped around the spectral being. However, a beam of energy hit her and when she looked at the source, it came from her enemy's finger. Another beam was shot and she barely dodged it. That person has two quirks, she thought. She lost her focus for a while and Stan Platinum punched her in the stomach. It then followed up with two jabs, a right hook, and an uppercut. Wild Ivy was down on the ground. I'll never forgive you. Someday, you will be punished for your crimes, Wild Ivy said. Izuku touched her head. The next morning, Wild Ivy's body was found with a stab wound. 2 more heroes died in the same day and the people were getting terrified. Mizudafu enforced curfew and pro-heroes patrolled the streets at late night. But those patrolling heroes made it even easier for Izuku to hunt his prey. The police was baffled. There was evidence that the heroes resisted before they got killed and there were some vines left on the scene. Was I wrong? The culprit didn't have a knife quirk but instead, a vine quirk? Then why didn't the culprit use it before? Why did those vines appear when the culprit started killing multiple targets? The investigator thought. Investigator Edo was a 35-year-old man with black spiky hair and scruffy beard. He was in charge of the serial killer case. The case had gotten more and more attention and more heroes were getting involved. It wasn't the same as the hero killer. In recent cases, they found out that even villains were targeted. What's going? Edo asked as he was walking. He then bumped into a green-haired boy. Sorry, Izuku apologized. No, it was my fault. Edo also apologized and went on his way. Izuku looked at the man who bumped him. A police officer, huh? Now that I think about it, there are more police officers in Mizudafu. Heroes can also be seen all around. I guess I'm getting a bit of attention now. Should I be worried? Izuku thought. Meanwhile, a man with blonde hair was staring at an old picture. It was a picture of him, a green-haired girl, and a black-haired boy. Despite that they were from different grade levels, Crystal Spike, Wild Ivy, and Cho-Cho were good friends. Now that his friends were gone, his desire for vengeance swelled inside him. He would catch the killer and bring peace to his friends. Crystal Spike walked outside his agency and patrolled the streets, hoping to find any clues. He went to every alley and street the attacks occurred. It was all too random. The places were too spread out. It was as if he was getting further and further. Does the culprit have a means of transportation? A motorcycle maybe? But there were no tire tracks at the crime scenes. According to investigations, the culprit has a vine quirk. What if those vines were left behind to confuse the investigation? That's too stupid. I'm getting nowhere, Crystal Spike thought. Are you okay? A voice behind him asked. Crystal Spike turned around and saw a green-haired kid with freckles. Somehow, he felt calm around him. It's no problem, kid, Crystal Spike said. If you want to talk about it, I'm not that busy, the boy offered. ####. They were both sitting on a park bench. The sun was already setting and they were drinking canned tea. It's just that. I want revenge, you know? It doesn't sound hero-like, but I want my friends to be at peace, Crystal Spike told the boy. I see. It must be tough. I couldn't imagine losing my friends, the boy said. I know it's part of being a hero, but it still hurts. I don't regret being a hero, but sometimes, I don't want any of these terrible feelings. How close are you to catching the guy? Crystal Spike told him everything about the investigation. Currently, they had no leads about the culprit except that he or she was based in Mizudafu. The culprit's quirk was also unknown, but it was assumed to be a vine quirk. Crystal Spike also told him the police's plan of hiring stronger heroes to help with the investigation. "And what are your plans on capturing the culprit?" the boy asked. Crystal Spike told him his patrol route and the time he will patrol. "Thanks, kid. I feel better thanks to you, Crystal Spike." "Thanks. No problem. It feels good to help someone who protects the peace of this city," the boy replied. And with that, Izuku left. He used free talk, a quirk that makes a person talk about their feelings and what was on their mind. Izuku stole the quirk from a salaryman who used the quirk to quickly rise up in the corporate ladder. The police wasn't on his tracks, so Izuku could relax. However, that didn't mean that he shouldn't be careful. And now, he had to erase the person who talked to him. ####. Crystal Spike was actually patrolling at the same time and at the same place, just like what he told Izuku earlier. And luckily, he was all alone at a street where no one usually crosses. His partner in patrolling actually left for a toilet break, and since the park was far away, his partner would just catch up. This would be a good spot. According to reports, the culprit targets victims in empty alleys and street, Crystal Spike thought. He heard something land behind him and felt killing intent. Crystal Spike saw a person wearing a black helmet and a green tracksuit. Judging from the culprit's broad shoulders, he assumed that he was a man. The culprit was holding a black knife. "I hit the jackpot," Crystal Spike said and activated his quirk. His body turned into a tough crystal and grew spikes. Eyes filled with hatred, he charged at the culprit. He shot out Crystal Spike projectiles from his hands, but they stopped midair when they were about to him. His quirk wasn't a vine quirk, Crystal Spike asked in his mind. The culprit pointed his finger at him and then a beam shot off from it. Crystal Spike felt a sting when it hit him. He's got another quirk? Is he a hybrid? Crystal Spike tried to analyze. The culprit disappeared, and when Crystal Spike looked behind him, the culprit was there. Despite his hardened body, he felt a strong punch from the culprit. More beams of energy were shot at him, with each one getting stronger than the previous one. Spikes made of crystals were shot at the culprit, but like before, it stopped in midair. Giving up on long-ranged combat, Crystal Spike decided to get closer. The culprit accepted his challenge, and it surprised him. A violet spectral being that was muscular and had long black hair appeared. "No way. Stand Platinum," Crystal Spike muttered. His surprise left him wide open, and Stand Platinum delivered a right hook. He was shocked. It had the same appearance and strength of his friend's quirk. And if that wasn't enough, vines sprouted from the ground. "This is Wild Ivy's quirk," he exclaimed. Questions filled his head. Why does the culprit have multiple quirks? Why does he have Cho-Cho and Wild Ivy's quirk? Then it clicked into him. "I now know your quirk," Crystal Spike said. The culprit stopped in his tracks. "Your quirk allows you to steal other people's quirks and use them. Amazing! You're the first one to guess that." Most of them were too scared for their lives to think in the first place, the culprit said and clapped his hands. His voice. "Where have I heard it before?" Crystal Spike asked in his mind, searching his memory. The culprit touched his head, and Crystal Spike felt the worst pain he ever felt. After that, his crystallized body was gone. He felt weak and open. "It seems this is the limit of your revenge," the culprit said. Crystal Spike remembered the voice. The boy from this afternoon." The culprit shrugged and then touched the knife at his chest. "I guess you're right. But it doesn't matter," the culprit said. "I guess it doesn't," Crystal Spike replied. "I guess this is it for me. I'm sorry, Cho-Cho." "I'm sorry, Wild Ivy," Crystal Spike apologized in his head. Izuku stabbed the hero's heart, killing him instantly. Everyone was afraid. Heroes, villains, and civilians were getting killed. To make it worse, there were multiple victims at different areas in one night. This sudden change baffled the police to the point that they believed that there might be multiple culprits instead of one. "That actually makes sense," Investigator Edo said during the meeting. "We assumed that there was only one killer. But we missed obvious signs. As we've seen in different areas, some pro-heroes resisted before they got killed. We saw remnants of different quirks in the area, like crystal shards, cracked walls, vines, and even melted steel. There must be multiple killers with the same type of knives," he added. "Wouldn't that make things worse?" We now have to catch several people. And it would be dangerous if they are under one organization, a pro-hero said. Could they be related to the League of Villains? Another pro-hero asked. That's quite unlikely. Remember, the group killed villains too. Or maybe, Edo drifted off. Maybe what? What if the culprit is connected to the League of Villains? What if it was a lone culprit all along? Edo asked. What are you talking about? You said it yourself. There were different quirks in each crime scene. Unless you're telling that the culprit has multiple quirks, a pro-hero trailed off. Realization hit the room. We have to call the top heroes now, a police officer shouted. We also need to pull out heroes from the area. It's too dangerous for them, another shouted. While the room was in panic, Edo sat silently and thought deeply. I hope I'm wrong. But all clues lead to this. If the culprit is the same thing as that person fought, we might be in danger. We must defeat it immediately, he thought. Hashtag. Izuku was humming as he took a bath. His body was already well-toned since he got a muscular quirk and his senses were sharp. He felt like a totally different person compared to his useless and quirkless self. He got out of the bath and turned on the television. News of his quirk hunting was being reported. People are becoming to doubt the police and heroes as they live in fear. A smile crept on his face as he watched the news. By destroying their trust in the heroes and police, he was doing a good job in destroying society. However, that wasn't enough. The man who blessed him with power wouldn't be satisfied with that. Even Izuku wasn't satisfied. That was why he needed to step up his game. And with many quirks in his hand, he could take on anything. Mom, I'm going out for a bit, Izuku shouted. Take care, sweetie, Inko replied. Hashtag. A muscular man with short and spiky crimson hair was sitting on his office chair. He had a huge scar that ran across his left face. That man was the #1 hero, Endeavor. His phone rang and although he was busy reading some files, he picked it. Hello, Endeavor, a voice greeted. Edo, what do you want? Endeavor asked. You know why I am calling. Endeavor looked at the files that he was reading. It was about dead heroes, civilians, and villains at different places in Mizudafu. They all had knife wounds that were thought to be from the same type of knife. It's about that serial killer, Endeavor said. Yes. The police would like to officially ask for your help, Edo told him. I did a bit of investigation on my own. And you're right, it would be best if we collaborate. There's no way I'm allowing a killer in my city. About that, there is a bit of complication about the killer. Edo told him about their deductions about the killer. What? Are you serious? There's a chance that it's a Nomu? Endeavor asked. He couldn't believe it. If it was true, then the city must be in great danger. A Nomu almost killed him, but luckily, it only left him a huge scar. If one of those was playing around in his city, then as the #1 hero, he must put a stop on its rampage. How sure are you? Endeavor asked. We have traces of multiple quirks used in the crime scenes. Either there are multiple culprits or the culprit has multiple quirks. And Nomus have multiple quirks. Exactly. Endeavor thought for a while. If it was a Nomu, then it must be connected to the League of Villains. But what would they gain by indiscriminately killing? Endeavor had a lot of questions on his head, but none of those would be answered if he sat around in his office. I'm going out for a bit, Endeavor told his sidekicks and walked out of his hero agency. His help was asked for the investigation and his help will be given to them. Mizudafu was his home, and if it was a playground for a Nomu, then that means his family was in danger. Endeavor decided to go to the police station and help the investigation. Endeavor was not exactly a family man. He abused his wife, neglected his children, and made his son hate him. However, he wanted to change all of that. It wasn't too late to atone himself. He wanted to be part of their world and show him their smiles despite the sins he committed. His thoughts were interrupted when a boy with a green hoodie went in front of him. The boy's hood was up and his head was hung low so Endeavor couldn't see his face. The #1 hero. Perfect, the boy said. Can I help you, young man? Endeavor asked. Yes. You'll help me destroy society, the boy said. Endeavor felt killing intent as he saw the boy's green eyes glow. He couldn't see the boy's face clearly because in 1 second, everything around the boy was blown away. Windows shattered. People were knocked away. Cars were overturned. Endeavor managed to remain standing, but he was still pushed back. The boy snapped his finger and his green hoodie transformed into a black suit. A black helmet with small industrial pipes covered his face. Now, number one hero. Show Japan how strong you really are, the villain shouted. Endeavor looked at the villain in front of him. The black suit and the black helmet reminded him of a certain villain, but he couldn't remember when he saw that villain. However, it was no time to think about when he met him. He looked around and some civilians were evacuating. And thankfully, some of them were carrying those who were knocked out. Pro heroes were also rushing into the scene and started taking care of the evacuations. Some of them stood beside Endeavor. I only need Endeavor. The rest of you should go away. Unless if you want your life to be cut short, the villain warned. They felt his strong killing intent that even Endeavor felt cold sweat run down his face despite that his flames were keeping him warm. Endeavor, what should we do? A pro hero asked. He's just a lone villain and we got the number one hero here. Let's take him on, another pro hero said and charged at the villain. Wait, Endeavor shouted, but it was too late. A beam of energy was shot and left a hole on the hero's chest. The other pros watched in horror as the dead hero collapsed to the ground. Like I said, I only need Endeavor. Extras like you don't even deserve my time, the villain warned again. Everyone, help with the evacuations. Leave this guy to me, Endeavor told the other pro heroes. But he's powerful. We can take him on together. A pro hero protested. No, you'll just die. And besides, if that guy is here, he'll just say, don't worry. I am here. So get going. Endeavor ordered them and the heroes fled from the scene. Are you done? The villain asked. Yeah. Your impression of All Might is shabby. I don't exactly care about an opinion of a villain. Fair enough. Shall we get this show started? Way ahead of you, Endeavor shouted and shot flames at the villain. Those flames didn't reach the villain, which troubled Endeavor. Endeavor then shot hotter flames, but that didn't work either. Is he resistant to flames? Is that why he forced the others to leave? Endeavor asked in his head. And then, the villain disappeared in front of his eyes. It took him a second to realize that the villain was most probably at his back, and when he turned around, he received a blow to the stomach. It was a powerful one and sent him crashing into a building. Enhanced strength, impact slam, shockwave force, and crystal spike is a wonderful combination, the villain said as he looked at his fist, which was enlarged, green, and spiky. Endeavor coughed out blood and felt a warm liquid dripping from his stomach area. What was that? He shot a beam, he teleported, and then he had super strength. He thought as he got down from the building. Are you the one behind the killings? Endeavor asked. What makes you say so? The villain asked. The police believe that the culprit has multiple quirks. And you seem to fit the bill. Wow. The police actually figured that out? I'm amazed. Endeavor was on guard. His enemy had multiple quirks, and so he must be careful. However, he still had one question in his mind. Are you a Nomu? He asked. Those weird creatures with multiple quirks too? I'm 100% human. Let's just say I came across an amazing opportunity to destroy this society, the villain said. I see. I bought enough time, I guess. The civilians must be far away already. That means I can fight without holding back, Endeavor thought. That's what I want, the villain told him. What? I want you to fight me without holding back. That way, I can show this world that not even the number one hero can stop me, the villain said and pointed at the sky. Endeavor looked up and saw a news helicopter hovering above them, reporting their fight. He then realized the weight of the battle. Defeat was not an option. Society was still in doubt, villains were still on the loose, and the citizens have no pillar to lean on. That was his job, to become the pillar that supported everyone like what that annoying person used to do. And he would prove that he could be leaned on by becoming victorious in every fight. You'd better put on a good show, the villain shouted and faced his palm at Endeavor. A huge shockwave hit him and knocked him away. The road was damaged and cars were either blown away or exploded. The damage was huge as it covered many city blocks. Smoke covered the area. I wonder if that killed him, the villain muttered. Flashfire fist, jet burn. A blast of fire hit the villain and left a burn on his chest. If it weren't for his resistance quirk, the villain would have been blown away. But that didn't help with the pain and heat he felt. Endeavor walked out of the smoke. Blood was dripping from his head and his costume was damaged. The shockwave was powerful and he knew that he couldn't afford to take on any more of those. Meanwhile, the villain was screaming in pain. The burn in his chest was too much for him to handle. If it weren't for his mask, one could see the tears forming in his eyes. He had been hunting heroes and always getting the advantage over them. They would panic if they found out that he had multiple quirks and he had no difficulty in killing them. But Endeavor was a different case. He faced him directly. The pain you are feeling right now is nothing compared to the pain you dealt, villain, Endeavor said. So you're acting high and mighty now, huh? Then I'll show you real power, the villain shouted and he levitated. Black clouds were forming above them and the wind blew. Thunder roared and lightning flashed. Disappear, the villain said. Endeavor was struck by lightning. He didn't allow himself to go down because of the pain. Another lightning struck down and he avoided it. More and more lightning went to the ground as Endeavor tried his best to dodge. Do your best. Number one hero, the villain said as he laughed at Endeavor's attempts in dodging. Endeavor couldn't fire flames at the laughing villain as he was too focused in dodging. If he had enough time, he would burn him. Having no choice, he stopped moving and aimed his palm at the villain. Lightning struck him but he handled the pain. Flashfire fist, jet burn, he shouted and a blast of fire hit the villain. The villain crossed his arms in order to defend himself but he still screamed in pain. His arms were burnt and he was shaking. The lightning strikes stopped and Endeavor caught his breath. He was already feeling that his body was heating up. You're annoying. But that's what I should expect from you, number one hero, the villain said. Endeavor was silent. Knowing that his enemy had multiple quirks, he had to be cautious. Who knows what other tricks he has on his sleeves? Thunderbolt and lightning. Very, very frightening. I wanted to finish you off with that, but it would be very boring. And I still have lots of quirks to test out on you. The villain charged at Endeavor and threw a punch to which Endeavor blocked. He then grabbed Endeavor's face and dragged it along the ground. Endeavor tried shooting flames at the villain, but it was in vain. The villain threw him upwards and lightning struck him. He formed a ball of energy in his hand and shot it at the falling Endeavor, causing an explosion. Smoke covered the area. Meanwhile, the people were horrified of what was happening. The number one hero was being beaten. His family was worried, especially his son, Shoto. The battle with the Nomu was just recent and now his father was fighting another strong villain. While he still had resentment against his father, he knew well that Endeavor was trying hard to atone. That was why he was wishing for his father to return home safely. The people also wished the same. Some of them still doubted Endeavor's capabilities and on whether he was worthy to be the number one hero. But they wanted him to live and continue protecting them from the threat known as villains. All of them were waiting for Endeavor to prove his worth as the number one hero, and if he fails now, then society would crumble down. Everyone! The smoke is getting clearer and now we see, the news reporter trailed off. The people, the Todoroki family, and especially Shoto felt despair when they saw what was going on. Endeavor was lying down on the ground while the villain was levitating in front of him. Black mist enveloped the villain and then he appeared in front of the news crew with the camera directly pointing at him. Hello Japan. I am all for 1 inch, he introduced himself. Hello Japan. I am all for 1 inch, the masked man introduced himself. Watching the television, All Might felt horror wash over his body. His sworn enemy was still alive. However, he noticed that All for One was smaller and had a different voice. Did he have a possession quirk? If he possessed a young man, then he's the lowest scum possible, All Might thought. You must be wondering, why am I fighting the number one hero? The answer's simple, to destroy society. What if another number one hero would fall? Wouldn't that spread fear and despair? But I won't stop there, the villain said. The news reporter and the cameraman looked at him, petrified because of fear. I will kill heroes, villains, and anyone who will stand in my way. I will spread fear and despair across entire Japan and ultimately, across the entire world. I will destroy this society of heroes and villains, and from its ashes, I will make a society where everyone is equally living in fear. For I am all for one. Everything belongs to me. Even your lives, he added. People felt real fear. The villain was different from all of the others they have seen so far, and he was powerful enough to challenge Endeavor. Despair was getting into them as the remnants of hope in their hearts gradually disappeared. And for my ambition to come true, I will show you how weak your number one hero is, the villain said. He looked at the ground and saw that Endeavor was standing despite that he was shaky. His costume was badly damaged and one could see bruises on his body. However, he didn't look like he was defeated. Endeavor's eyes were radiating with determination. The determination to protect everyone from the villain in front of him flared inside his body. Black mist covered the villain and he teleported in front of Endeavor. You can still move, he asked. I can't lose against the likes of you, Endeavor replied. Well, whatever. I was going to kill you anyway even if you remained lying down. Endeavor shot flames and like before, it didn't reach the villain. Knowing that low-temperature flames would do nothing, he charged at him with burning fists. The villain dodged Endeavor's attacks because of his enhanced senses and super reaction quirks. But Endeavor found out something. The villain was awkward in close combat. Endeavor saw many unnecessary moves and he managed to land a few punches. The villain teleported away from him and released a shockwave. Despite that it was weaker than the first one, Endeavor was still knocked back. Let me guess. This is your first time fighting, Endeavor said after he got up. The villain was silent. Of course, all you did was catch heroes off guard and then proceed to killing them. You didn't actually fight them properly. And that will be your undoing, he shouted and charged. Then, a violet and muscular spectral being appeared out of nowhere and punched Endeavor. Endeavor shot flames at the spectral being, but it didn't seem to be affected as it just continued punching. Flashfire fist, flame melt. Endeavor shouted and large flames enveloped his fist. He punched the spectral being and it disappeared after being subjected to that much heat. However, he found out that it was just a distraction. The number one hero saw the villain was gathering energy in his left hand, which was enlarged. Endeavor tried running towards him in order to stop it, but it was too late. A huge beam of energy along with a shockwave hit him. The attack destroyed a couple of city blocks and even toppled some buildings. Did that kill him? The villain asked. As if to answer his question, a huge blast of fire hit him. The villain screamed in pain again. Running out of the smoke, Endeavor appeared and landed a punch on the villain's face which caused the mask to crack. I need to find out his identity, so that even if he retreated, he would have nowhere to run, Endeavor thought and raised his fist. Realizing his intentions, the villain caused vines to grow and wrap around Endeavor's arm. Endeavor burned the vines, but the villain bought time to enlarge his fist and crystallize it. The villain punched Endeavor in the face and caused him to be knocked back. But the villain didn't stop. His other fist also became enlarged and crystallized with spikes, and he continued punching Endeavor. Punch after punch, Endeavor could feel his consciousness fading. It's your fault. You're the one who made Mom. He remembered his son's words when he put his wife in the asylum. He still had to make amends. They haven't smiled because of him yet. That was why he had to prove to them and to the world that he would be the best hero. Endeavor grabbed the villain's hands and released hot flames. Despite being crystallized, the villain still screamed. Then, Endeavor felt something stab his gut. He looked down and saw crystal spikes lodged on it. He released the villain and the villain punched him, knocking him to the ground. You were tough. But it's time to finish this, the villain said. You're right. It's time to end this, Endeavor shouted, and a huge pillar of flame surrounded him. The villain backed away because of the heat and he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Endeavor's body was completely surrounded by flames that only his eyes could be seen. Slowly, he began to heat up and even the villain was visibly intimidated. Enhanced resistance. Crystal spike body. Temporal protection. Resist flame. the villain shouted as his body changed. Prominence burn, Endeavor shouted, and a flash of light engulfed the battlefield. The news reporter, the cameraman, and the people watching the television covered their eyes. And when the light disappeared, they saw Endeavor lying on the ground. And the villain was on his knees. The villain's suit was scorched, revealing serious burns. His helmet was still intact due to the temporal protection quirk he used. Endeavor sighed. He failed. The villain's footsteps could be heard as his tired body was lying on the ground. The villain then touched his head and he felt intense and indescribable pain. But he didn't mind that. He knew he was going to die. And all he had was regret. Sorry, Ray. I forced you to marry me just to fulfill my ambitions. I never saw you as my wife. You deserved a better man. Sorry, Natsuo. I rejected you despite you trying to get Mai and Shoto's attention. Sorry, Fuyumi. I never granted your wish of a normal and happy family. He looked up and saw the villain raising his knife. Shoto, I could list all of the things I have done to you, and I know I can't undo all of it by saying, sorry. I was selfish and I still am for wanting to be part of your lives again. I haven't seen you smile yet. So, if there's a God out there, I wish that you would still be my family in the next life. The knife stabbed his heart, and the life of the man known as Todoroki Enji came to an end. Izuku groaned in pain as he was in the shower. The burn marks in his body didn't heal yet, and it stung when the water came into contact with his burnt skin. He underestimated Endeavor. Endeavor's last attack was too powerful that most of his body was burnt. Even though he had a self-healing quirk, it would take time for him to be fully healed. He got out of the shower and put on some clothes. Using an illusionary quirk, he hid his burn marks and walked to the living room. Izuku looked at the news which was being shown on the television. We are currently suffering the loss of the number one hero, Endeavor. In his short reign of being the number one hero, he managed to deal with difficult cases. But this time, he lost against the mysterious villain named All for One who, for a few days already, haven't made his move. Here we have an official statement from the police, the news reporter said as the camera shifted to investigator Edo. Currently, we have identified All for One to be a person who has multiple quirks. As seen from the footage of the battle between him and the late Endeavor, he had different quirks such as manipulating the weather, shooting shockwaves, and super strength. Because of this, we advise heroes and the public to be alert always. Heroes should avoid confronting the man alone and focus on retreating and getting help. We are doing everything we can to identify All for One and put him behind bars in order to give peace to the Todoroki family. And to his other victims, he told the media. How are you planning on defeating someone who stood toe-to-toe against Endeavor? According to the heroes who witnessed the fight, All for One easily killed one hero who recklessly charged at him. A journalist asked. We are working on countermeasures against him. So far we are trying to contact not only Japanese heroes but also foreign heroes to face against him. If one man is not enough, we will bring Earth's mightiest heroes against him, Edo answered. All for One suddenly attacked Endeavor in broad daylight. Is spreading fear all he wanted to do, or do the police think that there is an ulterior motive? Another journalist asked. We cannot say for sure. So far, we believe that he fought and eventually killed Endeavor just to make his presence known to the public, Edo answered. That statement caused other journalists to rise up and ask more questions. Izuku just smirked at their theories. How foolish, he thought. He remembered a memory of the man he hated. ####. After being told to give up on his dreams, Izuku was on his way home. He had known it all along, but he refused to accept it. Now that his idol told him, he had no choice but to accept it and think realistically. Then an explosion occurred nearby. Izuku immediately ran to the scene and was horrified of what he saw. The slime villain that All Might supposedly captured was suffocating a person. And worse, the person was his friend, Katsuki. Izuku knew the pain Katsuki was dealing with as he was subjected to the same pain earlier. He looked around and wondered what the pros were doing. They were doing nothing. They were just controlling the damage. None of them were risking their lives as what All Might said. Izuku wanted to help, especially since his childhood friend was in danger, but he realized he was quirkless, which meant he was powerless. He looked down at the ground and cursed at his powerless self. Izuku turned around and began walking away when he saw a familiar skinny figure. Hope entered him since the real hero was here. But All Might did nothing but watch. Izuku couldn't believe it. The very hero that told him that pros risk their lives was staying safe. He felt betrayed. The situation was resolved when a hero with a solidification quirk arrived and solidified the villain. Katsuki was safely rescued and the villain was detained. But it wasn't a happy ending. Not for Izuku. He knew that society was wrong. All Might was a hypocrite. Hatred filled him. Izuku couldn't believe it that he was fooled by a hypocrite and that he wanted to become like him. The very idea that he idolized All Might made him sick. But he couldn't do anything about it. He was quirkless and powerless. ####. He now had the power to do it. Izuku went up to his room and sat on his bed and wondered about his next move. The #1 hero already died and society was surely shaken. But what should he do next? How could he ruin society when the top was already cut? Then an idea popped in his head. If the strongest was defeated, then it was time to nip the growing buds. ###. Todoroki Shoto couldn't believe he was crying. His brother, Natsuo, was clenching his fist while his sister, Fuyumi, and his mother, Rei, were hugging each other and crying. He hated his father. The hardships he experienced because of him, the current state of his mother, the broken family he was in, and all other disasters were all caused by him. Why wouldn't his tears stop? Maybe it was because the fact that his father finally realized and wanted to make amends softened his heart. Or maybe that change of his father's attitude when he became the #1 hero gave him hope that his father could change. That he would someday be proud of his own father. But that was all gone. All that remained was a dead body of a man named Todoroki Enji. All for one, Shoto, seething with anger, muttered as he clenched his fist. Shoto. Natsuo looked at his brother, worried that he might seek revenge. I know. All for one defeated that old man. I have no chance against him as much as I hate to admit it, Shoto said. Rei continued crying as Fuyumi comforted her. No matter how much he hated his father, Shoto felt that his father still didn't deserve to die. His father was asking for a second chance but didn't get it. Shoto sighed and wiped his eyes. If his father would see him being weak, he would beat him up. But that was in the past. He wondered what his father would do if he saw Shoto crying. But it was useless thinking about it as the man was already dead. ###. A week passed and Izuku was standing away from a school known as CI Academy. It was filled with hero-in trainings. What better way to ruin society by killing those who would become future heroes? Also, this would make the people lose trust in the police and the heroes. Well, it's show time, Izuku said as he donned the black helmet. It was a normal day for IntelliPsycho, a girl with bluish-gray hair and matching color eyes. With her 150 IQ, she aced the test her teacher just gave and she walked proudly in the hallway of her school, CI Academy. After her defeat in the provisional license exam, she began working more on her quirk, which was IQ. Her quirk enhances her intellect temporarily after consuming tea and closing her eyes to think. She was testing on what brand of tea would enhance her IQ the best, and she kept on devising countermeasures against villains with unknown quirks. It was a peaceful day as she was greeted by her classmates and teachers. Being a natural leader and a top student, she gained respect and awe from students across all year levels. She went to the cafeteria in order to test another tea when the disaster happened. A loud explosion occurred nearby. It shook the entire cafeteria and Intelli immediately drank tea and closed her eyes. Thousands of possibilities ran through her mind. Judging on how close the explosion was, she deduced that the school was being attacked. But who would be dumb enough to attack their school in broad daylight? The League of Villains showed no interest in them. Then the answer arrived in her mind as the sky darkened and thunder roared. All for one, she muttered. Sadly, one of the students heard her. All for one, the student shouted, which caused others to panic. What is he doing here? I don't want to die. Before the students could run, a flash of light entered Intelli's eyes and then she felt pain across her body. It took some time before Intelli regained consciousness and got out of the rubble. upperclassmen fighting against all for one and getting slaughtered one after another. Occasionally he would grab a student's head and then kill him. She wondered why he would do that, but it wasn't the time to think about it. What matters the most is what she could do now. She looked at her bag and saw canned tea. It was the best brand she had so far, and it was convenient since it was in a can. She opened it, drank it, and closed her eyes. She paled. No way. Out of the million possibilities, there's no way we could win, Intelli shakily said as her knees fell on the ground. If Endeavor couldn't win against all for one, what could heroes in training do against him? However, she tried to cling on hope and prayed to whatever gods out there as she hid behind rubble. It was disgraceful to hide against a villain, but it was the only logical solution if she wanted to live. And with fear on her mind, she knew that only a miracle would allow her to make it back home alive. Meanwhile, students were one by one killed. The courageous upperclassmen tried fighting, but they were still killed in one blow. All for one was getting bored. It was nothing like fighting Endeavor or even fighting normal heroes. But that was to be expected since they were just heroes in training. He used beams, explosions, lightning, fire, crystal spikes, and shockwaves to kill fleeing and fighting students. One by one, students died as they screamed. Some of them were on the ground, watching him helplessly as they were mercilessly slaughtered. Should I be really doing this? A thought entered his head. All for one shook the thought of his head. It was society's fault, not his. That was why he had to bring retribution. Besides, he already robbed many important things. He was going to hell anyway, so he had to do what he can while he was still alive. The pro heroes arrived. MD Lady, Ed Shot, and Kamui Woods went to the scene along with some pro heroes. All for one was happy because he was getting bored of massacring students. You monster! Lady insulted All for one and she turned into her giant form. Lady, stay calm. That man killed Endeavor. We must be cautious, Ed Shot warned. Ed Shot is correct. That man is like an intelligent Nomu. He has multiple quirks and a cunning mind. He is on a whole new level compared to the ones we fought before, Kamui Woods added. Intelli felt hope. The number 4 and the number 7 hero were there to save them. All for one might be strong, but against them, he might be defeated. She reached for another can of tea, but she hesitated. By drinking tea, she might be able to help the heroes by giving them strategies. However, the fear of knowing that their odds of survival might still be at 0 paralyzed her. All she could do was just watch. Are you coming? All for one asked. Kamui, Ed Shot shouted, and Kamui's hand extended into branches. The branches caught All for one's arms and legs and proceeded to wrapping him. Lady, Ed Shot commanded, and as if on cue, she ran towards the villain and grabbed him. Ed Shot folded his arm and stretched it towards All for one's mask. But then it stopped in midair. What? Ed Shot asked in surprise. No matter how hard he tried, his folded arm couldn't get any closer to All for one. It was as if there was an invisible barrier. How disappointing. A huge shockwave exploded and knocked back MD Lady. Lady, Kamui Woods shouted, but he then noticed that All for one teleported right across him. I always wanted to try this. Flash fire fist, jet burn. All for one shouted, and a huge blast of flame shot from his hand and burned Kamui Woods to a crisp, killing him instantly. Kamui! All for one's fist became enlarged and crystallized as he punched Lady's cheek, which caused her to fall down. He then struck her with multiple lightning until she returned to her regular size. All for one then shot a huge crystal spike at her and it penetrated her heart. You be a steady, Ed Shot shouted as he charged at him. All for one was thinking on what quirk he should use to defeat Ed Shot. He then smiled under his mask. Ed Shot's entire body turned into a sharp foldable object as he launched himself into All for one. The villain cracked his finger and touched one strand of the folded hero, causing him to stop in midair. Black lightning coursed through Ed Shot's body and he returned to his normal form while groveling on the ground. All of your quirks do not interest me. It's a shame, but you have to die, All for one said. He conjured the same knife he used in murdering people in his early days and stabbed Ed Shot. Intelli couldn't believe it. She wanted to escape. She had to escape. With her mind, she found out one thing. All for one could steal quirks, That was why he was so powerful. If she just survives and tells this information, then it would be helpful to the investigations. That was what she believed. She tried to move, but she knocked over a rock. Fear washed over her as she heard footsteps drawing closer towards her. But then the footsteps stopped. "Am I safe?" she asked in her head. A black portal appeared in front of her, and All for One stepped out of it. IntelliPsycho didn't need a smart mind to know that she was going to die. ####. News of the attack on CI Academy spread immediately. The surviving students, much to Izuku's disappointment, told the media that it was All for One's doing. Fear spread across the populace again. They couldn't trust heroes, police, and even the school. Izuku was getting close in destroying society. He should just continue this pace and watch the world burn. He took a sip of his coffee as he watched the television. Izuku decided to walk around in Mizurufu Mall just to relax and see the reactions of the public. And the reactions he got were priceless. None of them were smiling anymore. Children did not stray from their parents. The guards were tense all the time. It was all too perfect for him. Then he saw an ash-blonde hair among the crowd. Izuku's hatred flared up. "Kaken," he muttered, and his coffee began boiling. "Shut up, useless Deku," a younger Katsuki shouted. "But Kaken, you shouldn't use your quirk to harm other people," Izuku said as he defended a crying kid behind him. "It's not my fault he's weak. Move away, quirkless loser, or I might beat you up," Katsuki threatened as small sparks exploded on his palm. Izuku still remembered all of the abuse he received from his childhood friend. No matter how hard he tried to befriend him, Katsuki would always reject him and hurt him in the process. Now that he thought about it, society was messed up. Katsuki was a known bully and he had no respect for other individuals. He was always scowling and his pride was the worst. And yet he got into the most prestigious hero school in the country, UA. Why would UA think that Katsuki was a hero material? Izuku didn't understand that. Maybe it was time to test it and see whether he could be a hero. Izuku walked up to Katsuki and then his clothes transformed into a black suit and his signature helmet masked his face. Katsuki felt a tap on his shoulder and when he turned around, "Hey," All for One greeted. He immediately recognized the man who approached him. Before Katsuki could react, a huge shockwave spread out and he was the only one unaffected. The lights of the mall went out, the stall's windows shattered, the people were injured, and there were a few flames here and there. "All for One," Katsuki managed to say. "Hello, Casey." "Bakugo." Katsuki was feeling cold. He had the provisional license to take care of the villain, but somehow, he couldn't move a muscle. Was it fear? Was it because he knew that he couldn't hold a candle against the man who killed Endeavor and destroyed an entire school? "What do you want?" Katsuki asked calmly. He had to distract him. Anytime soon, the pro-heroes would arrive. It was foolish for him to try and fight a powerful villain alone, even though he hated to admit it. Katsuki could feel the difference in their power just by being in All for One's presence. "I saw your performance at the sports festival. Quite amusing to see a first-placer to not be satisfied with his performance," All for One answered. "It's because that half-half BSRD held back." "I see. You wanted to prove yourself right? You want everyone to see that you are a worthy hero." Katsuki didn't like where the conversation was going. All for One pointed at the 4th floor of the mall. A woman was dangling from the edge of a damaged railing and pretty soon she would fall. "Now, hero, prove to me that you can actually save lives," All for One said and snapped his fingers. It took a second for Katsuki to react and launch himself into action. The woman was falling and he put all of his effort to go faster in order to catch her. But he didn't reach her. The woman fell with a splat which Katsuki couldn't forget for the rest of his life. He knelt beside the dead woman and All for One teleported beside him. Poor woman. A hero failed to save her. "You are quite slow for someone who was supposed to be in the fast lane," All for One taunted. "BSTD," Katsuki shouted and released an explosion at him. However, All for One was unfazed. "Now you're saying it's my fault? I even gave you a chance and a warning but you wasted it all. Which one of us is at fault now?" he asked. Katsuki released more explosions and All for One stood as if those explosions were like a breeze to him. He backed away and gritted his teeth. Katsuki knew the difference in their strength, but he couldn't just let the villain get away. Not after he caused pain to that half-half BS dirty. And not after he messed up society. All for One stretched his arms and black mist covered Katsuki. The mist then disappeared and Katsuki was surprised to see himself in his hero costume. If you're planning on fighting me, I should at least allow you to make it entertaining, All for One said. Katsuki growled and explosions sparked in his hands. All he wanted is to tear the villain's mask and see his surprised face. After that, he would beat him senseless. That was what he would get by messing with him. He launched himself at All for One and attempted to kick, but All for One blocked it. Katsuki did a right swing, but the villain blocked it again. The hero released explosions at his enemy, but the villain wasn't even damaged. TC. Stun grenade. A flash of light engulfed the area, and when it disappeared, Katsuki was high above the ground. Katsuki propelled himself in a circular motion and created a tornado. He crashed to the ground and caused a major explosion. Smoke covered the area and Katsuki panted. Did that get him? Katsuki asked. Vines grew from the ground and wrapped around his legs. Of course not. This guy FNG defeated Endeavor. He wouldn't die that easily. Katsuki scolded himself and destroyed the vines. Come at me, Bakugo Katsuki. I'll take the pleasure of crushing you down after you try your best in defeating me, All for One said. Katsuki released the pin in his gauntlet and a large-scale explosion headed towards All for One. All for One stood at the same spot despite receiving a huge explosion. No effect, huh? Katsuki asked in his head. Is that all you've got? All for One asked. Cold sweat dripped down Katsuki's face. He couldn't believe that he was actually feeling fear. Most of the time, he hid his fear by being confident, but this time, he felt true fear. He couldn't defeat his opponent. There was no way he could win. Katsuki clenched his fist. If he was going down, he'd go down trying. He launched himself to the air with some explosions and swiftly approached All for One. Katsuki punched, kicked, released explosions, and even released the pin of his gauntlet at point blank. But All for One wasn't even hurt. Is that all? He asked. Katsuki panted. He was running out of ideas and breath. The one he was facing seemed to be invincible. No matter how hard he tried, his attacks wouldn't reach. Very well. It's my turn, All for One said and disappeared in front of Katsuki's eyes. The young hero felt a strong blow on his gut when the villain instantly appeared in front of him. He was launched all the way into the air, and when he was about to crash, All for One teleported behind him and kicked him to the ground. But that wasn't enough. All for One fired beams of energy at Katsuki which became stronger after each shot. All for One teleported to where Katsuki landed. Are you done? You know, that's nothing compared to the pain you dealt to me, Izuku said. The F is he talking about? Katsuki thought. Katsuki was actually faking that he fainted. All he had to do was wait for an opening and launch an attack on All for One. The pain you caused me and the humiliation you gave me made me wonder why I bothered to befriend you. Maybe because I still hoped that things would return to the way things were. When you weren't an egotistical BSTRD, Izuku told the unconscious Katsuki. All for One turned his back and Katsuki saw his chance. He used an explosion to launch himself upwards. All for One was caught off guard, and when he turned around, Katsuki released the strongest explosion he ever made. His shoulders almost cracked because of the pain, but he gritted his teeth. The smoke cleared and he saw that All for One was on one knee. Katsuki noticed that his mask was cracked and a part of it broke off, revealing a green eye which was filled with hatred. Katsuki felt a familiar feeling in that eye. It was as if he saw that eye before. Did he meet All for One before? From what All for One said, he could think they met at some point. But he would definitely remember someone as powerful as him. That's amazing. You're the first one to catch me off guard. Maybe it's because you're you that's why I became relaxed. I guess I'm still as softed despite all of the things I've done, Izuku praised Katsuki. I don't FNG understand you, Katsuki said. I know you don't. But still, you broke my mask. It's just right if I broke something of the same value from you, right? All for One asked. Katsuki felt a strong grip on his body. He tried moving, but it was in vain. Maybe I should break some of your bones, like the scapula. All for one snapped and Katsuki felt intense pain as he felt something snap inside him. Then, the clavicle, humerus, radius, ulna, scaphoid, lunate, triquetrum, pisiform, hamate, capitate, trapezoid, trapezium, metacarpals, proximal phalanges, distal phalanges, ilium, ischium, pubis, femur, patella, tibia, fibula, talus, calcaneus, navicular, medial cuneiform, middle cuneiform, lateral cuneiform, cuboid, metatarsal, proximal phalanges and distal phalanges. All for one continued snapping, and for each snap, Katsuki screamed in pain as his bones broke. I'll kill you. I'll fang kill you, Katsuki threatened. Let's see you try that next time, All for one replied and touched his head. Pain surged through Katsuki and knocked him out. All for one laid him to the ground. Let's see how you'll live the quirkless life, Kaken, Izuku said and teleported away. Shigaraki Tamura angrily scratched his neck as he watched the news. The fake All for one attacked a mall and heavily injured a UA student. He couldn't forgive that. First, that imposter took his master's name and then attacked a student from their targeted school. It was too much of a mockery for him. That imposter must be picking a fight against the League of Villains. This man is insulting you, Shigaraki muttered. The other members of the League just watched him silently. Dabi was bored as he stood in a corner. Himiko played with a knife. Twice and Spinner talked about random stuff. But sometimes, they would be bothered by Shigaraki's loud scratching noises. If Kurojairi was here, I'd have him bring that imposter here and kill that imposter myself, Shigaraki said. There's no need for that, a voice told him. The League was surprised to see a man in a black suit and black helmet with small industrial pipes standing behind Shigaraki. Shigaraki reacted in time and reached for the man's mask, but vines sprouted from the floor and wrapped around his body. The rest of the League switched to their battle mode as Dabi conjured blue flames. Himiko readied her knives, Spinner pointed his blade, and twice unleashed his tape. Relax. I'm not here to fight, All for one said. I don't care. You insulted Sensei just by taking his name. And then you target someone from the school we've set our eyes on. You are an enemy, Shigaraki told him. I see. All for one was his name too, he asked. What are you saying? Let me tell you a story. All for one told the story of how he met the previous holder of All for one who was dying in an alleyway. He told him how he decided to carry on his will and he would destroy the society he hated. So you're saying Sensei gave you that power? Shigaraki asked. Yes. You're lying. It's up to you on whether you'd believe me or not. But I'm not here to talk about that. Shigaraki and the other members of the League were confused about what he said. A black portal appeared and All for one retrieved a metal suitcase from it. He opened it and it was filled with cash. What is this? Shigaraki asked. I'm funding your League of Villains, All for one answered. Shigaraki became silent. Even though he was angry at the man in front of him, it was true that the League needed funds. They had to repair their hideout and food was a problem, especially that some members have huge appetites. Shigaraki was no longer a kid. He was now a leader since his master was gone. And since he was a leader, he didn't have the luxury to think about himself. What is your goal? Shigaraki asked. It's good to see that you've calmed down. As you've known, I'm going to tear down society and build a new one. Surely our goals are the same, right? All for one asked. You're right. What about it? I'm a powerful villain and I already killed top heroes. But that isn't enough. My progress is going slowly. Your sensei, the man who gave me this power, wouldn't be satisfied with my pace. That's why I need your help. What if the news that the League of Villains and All for One is working together spreads? Shigaraki thought about it. Fear would crush society, he answered. Correct. That's why I'm going to occasionally give you funds in order for you to operate, All for One said. And what if we refuse? Dabi asked. Underneath his mask, Izuku smiled. Then I'll have to make you submit to me, by force, All for One said, and the floor started shaking. But I don't want to resort to that. It's like an alliance, except that most of the time, we stay out of each other's way. Occasionally we would work together, but that happens rarely. What do you think, Shigaraki? Shigaraki thought deeply. What would his master do? What was the correct answer? Fine. ####. An unfamiliar ceiling entered Katsuki's vision. His arms and feet felt numb and his throat was dry. He then remembered what happened to him. The woman who fell, his fight with All for One, and his defeat entered his mind. He also remembered the green eye filled with hatred. "Oh, you're awake," a voice said. The voice belonged to a short, elderly lady known as Recovery Girl. Her quirk deals with healing injuries with a kiss. However, Katsuki didn't seem to be fully healed. Your surgery was difficult. Most of your bones were snapped into pieces. You might not be able to move your arms and legs for a while. All for One is merciless even to a student. What kind of villain, no, monster is he? Recovery Girl asked. Katsuki was silent. He suffered complete defeat. None of his attacks reached. All for One. All he did was useless. He couldn't even save a life. As a child, he never lost a battle because of his tenacity. But even with his tenacity and strength, he still lost against that overwhelming power. A hero was supposed to get out of any pinch and emerge victorious. What kind of hero was he? He thought about All for One's words. Apparently, he caused him pain and even humiliated him. Also, they used to know each other. However, he couldn't remember someone with such hateful a green eye. His mind flashed someone with green hair. Katsuki tried hard to remember, but he forgot his name. After all, he didn't think about the names of the extras in his life. But somehow, he felt that the green-haired person who suddenly appeared in his mind had a connection to All for One. There was a knock on the hospital door, and when Recovery Girl opened it, Principal Nizu, All Might, and Aizawa entered. "Hello, young Bakugo," All Might greeted. "We know you are still recovering, but we need to ask you questions. After all, we are dealing with who might be the worst villain Japan ever faced. And you were the only one who fought him and lived to tell the tale," Principal Nizu said. "He's strong," that was all Katsuki could say as fear returned to him. He wondered why All for One allowed him to live. Did he give him mercy? That villain already murdered too many people to have any mercy left inside him. "Did you notice anything about him?" "Anything would be good," Aizawa asked. Katsuki looked at them. "I managed to break a bit of his mask." "And?" Nizu asked. "I saw a green eye." "All for One is green-eyed?" "At least we can narrow down suspects," Aizawa said, despite that he knew there were a lot of green-eyed people in Japan. His eye was filled with hatred. It was burning. "One look at it and I felt his desire to destroy everything," Katsuki told them. After a few more questions, Nizu and All Might left. Aizawa stayed behind to talk more with Katsuki and would be his guardian in case that All for One would go after him again. But deep inside, Aizawa knew that he wouldn't stand a chance against the powerful villain alone. "Are you sure we shouldn't tell him?" Nizu asked All Might as they were walking down the hall. "I don't know," All Might answered. "His future is now ruined. All for One robbed him of his wonderful potential. Maybe he was punishing him by letting him live like this," Nizu said. "You're right. In time, we need to tell him the truth. Young Bakugo has the right to know why he might be quirkless." Shishikura Seiji wondered what went wrong. Shiketsu High School was a wonderful hero school that could even match up to UA. Why would a villain attack the school filled with strong individuals? The answer was simple. The individual was powerful enough to defeat them all. That was the horrible truth which All for One brought along with the disaster. He was having trouble breathing. After all, a crystal spike was lodged in his stomach. Seiji knew he wasn't going to make it since he lost too much blood. "For one, what are you?" he asked himself. Seiji managed to look around and saw dead teachers and students. He gritted his teeth. First, he lost in a shameful manner against Yu. Now he couldn't protect the things important to him. His beloved school was destroyed by a madman. Senpai, a young man with a buzzed dark brown hair and black eyes, ran toward Seiji. "Inasa," Seiji weakly said. Tears flowed down Inasa's face as he looked the embedded crystal in his senpai's body. "Inasa, Shiketsu might be destroyed, but don't let its teachings die," Seiji told him while Inasa nodded. Seiji closed his eyes and never opened it again. Inasa bawled as his emotions swirled inside him. After a while, he stopped crying and placed Seiji's beloved Shiketsu hat on his head, swearing to bring justice to his fallen senpai. He turned his attention towards the cause of the destruction, All for One. "Dimin you," Inasa shouted and flew towards All for One. "Inasa! Don't!" His other senpai, Mora Nagamasa, shouted. Wind surrounded Inasa's fist, and when he swung it, a strong gust of wind blew. However, All for One didn't move even by an inch. Inasa clicked his tongue and fired more long-ranged attacks. "How annoying," All for One said, and a cold sweat ran down Inasa's face. All for One teleported behind Inasa, and before he could react, All for One's fist enlarged and crystallized. He managed to cross his arms in order to defend himself before he received All for One's punch. He felt his bones cracking as he crashed to the ground. Nagamasa stood in between All for One and Inasa. Before All for One could continue attacking the whirlwind user, a bunch of third years and second years lunged at him and used their quirks. Taking it as a chance, Nagamasa carried Inasa and made a run for it. "Put me down. I've got to deal with him," Inasa shouted. "You fool. Let us handle him. You first years should run away. Some of them already managed to run already, so there's no point for you to fight," Nagamasa replied, almost shouting at his underclassmen. "You're telling me to leave all of you behind?" "Yes." Inasa was dumbstruck. "Listen. The first years must be very scared to have this thing happen to them. And you're the most powerful among them. It's your responsibility to guide and protect them. So man up and leave us behind," Nagamasa told him and set him down on the ground. All for One then appeared in front of them. He already killed them. How terrifying, Nagamasa thought. "Go Inasa. Fly," he ordered. Inasa used his quirk to fly away as he gritted his teeth. "Sacrificing yourself? How noble," All for One praised. "As long as that person lives, hope is still intact," Nagasawa replied. "He's got that right, fam," a girl with brown hair and dark brown eyes said and walked beside the hairy man. "Cammy, no worries. I already, evacuated the first years. We can totally go wild here. You could have lived by evacuating with them. Why are you still here?" All for One asked Cammy. "The rest of my classmates and my senpais are dying for hope. It'll be totes shameful to run away, you know," Cammy answered. "I see. Then be prepared to die," All for One said. "Cammy," Nagasawa called out. "Yeah. It's been fun being classmates with you." "Same fam. Hashtag. Inasa flew for hours. His body was tired and the sun was already setting. He cried to the point he felt that he no longer had any tears left. Without a destination in mind, he just flew. But somehow, he ended up in another school. Fatigue washed over him and he crashed into UA. It didn't take long for Hound Dog and Ectoplasm to find him trespassing. What they saw from him was that he was groveling in the ground and bawling his eyes out. "That hat? You're from Shiketsu. What happened?" Ectoplasm asked. "Shiketsu's gone. All for One. He destroyed it," Inasa told them and collapsed to the ground due to fatigue. Hashtag. A day passed and the news of Shiketsu's destruction spread around the country. Families mourned for their children and the media criticized the police, heroes, and even the schools. There were several families who made their children quit their hero schools in fear that All for One would destroy it. Investigator Edo was restless. He hasn't got any decent sleep lately as he tried to identify the man behind the mask. All he got was that All for One has a green eye. Unfortunately, there are thousands of people in Japan who had a green eye and there are even millions on there in other countries. But that was their only lead. Someone knocked on his office door and opened it. "Investigator Edo, they're here," a police officer said. Hope flickered in the tired investigator's eyes and he immediately went to the conference room. There were 5 people in the conference room along with police officers. One was an American with brown hair and green eyes. He had a scruffy beard and a muscular build. His costume consisted of the colors red, blue, and white with a big white star on his chest surrounded by 50 stars in a circular manner. The second one was a German with blonde hair, blue eyes, and a mustache. His hero costume was a yellow suit with a giant U on his chest. A white cape was strapped on his back. The third one was a hairy Chinese man. He had a wooden staff and his monkey-like tail was wrapped around it. His hero costume was a traditional Buddhist monk outfit. The fourth one was a Russian woman with long white hair and red eyes. She wore a fur coat, fur boots, fur gloves, and a fur hat despite that it wasn't that cold. The last one was an English woman with blonde hair and violet eyes. A monocle dangled on her left eye and her hero costume consisted of a silk hat and a suit that magicians usually wear. "We've gathered them," a police officer told Investigator Edo. "The Earth's mightiest heroes," Investigator Edo said and smiled. George Winston aka Army Hero, Captain Gun, Eckhard Brestrich aka Invincible Hero, Übermensch, Liao Yuhan aka Martial Hero, Monkey King, Berezhnaya Valia Mikhailovna aka Siberian Hero, Frostbite, and Emilia Watson aka Time Hero, Chronopass were gathered in one room. They were the world's top 5 heroes now that All Might was retired and Endeavor was dead. And they were gathered in Japan for one reason only. "So this, All for One, is dangerous enough to have 5 of us face him?" Captain Gun asked in English. "Yes. Multiple heroes have died in his hands and 2 schools have suffered because of him. If you want a list of heroes who died, refer to the file in front of you. It's in English so you can read it properly," Investigator Edo answered. They began reading the files which were all about the investigation. All of All for One's attacks, his victims, the quirks he used, and his appearance were all written on the files. All for One has multiple quirks. A tricky enemy indeed. It would be easy if we could know all of his quirks. As Sun Tzu said, if you know the enemy and know yourself you need not fear the results of 100 battles. But we do not have that luxury, Monkey King said. It seems he's a worthy adversary for the 5 greatest heroes in the world. If we are not enough for him, then I doubt the world will ever see hope again, Übermensch said. "All right everyone. Let's start the meeting. First of all for One first appeared when he killed Endeavor. But there are evidences that he already did criminal acts before his debut," Investigator Edo told them. "What makes you say that?" Chronopass asked. In another folder, you can see a list of victims of a serial killer that was based in Mizudafu. The knife wound in Endeavor and edge shot were caused by the same type of knife that wounded the earlier victims, Investigator Edo answered. "So you're saying that the serial killer and All for One are the same. But what made him turn into a monster who wanted to destroy society from a simple serial killer?" Frostbite asked. "That is one of the mysteries of the man. Sadly, our investigation is going nowhere. All for One disappears as quickly he appears like a natural disaster," Investigator Edo answered. The heroes muttered in their native languages and Edo could only understand Captain Gun and Chronopass. They seemed to be thinking about All for One. It was understandable. Investigator Edo was on the case for a long time and he barely knew about All for One. The only solid leads he has are that All for One was based in Mizudafu and that he had a green eye. He tried his best to give a reassuring smile. "It's okay everyone. All for One is facing against the world's mightiest heroes. There's no way that he'll win against 5 of you," Investigator Edo said. "Hell yeah. All we got to do is find him and send him to jail," Captain Gun shouted enthusiastically. An explosion then occurred as blinding light entered his eyes. Investigator Edo managed to rise up from the rubble and he was horrified of what he saw. The police headquarters he was in was blown away, and levitating on top of him was All for One. "Investigator Edo. I've been looking for you," All for One said. "Looking for me? Why?" Investigator Edo asked in his mind. All for One reached for the investigator's head. Then a dove made of ice headed towards All for One and exploded upon impact. Ice covered the spot where the dove exploded. "Investigator, move out of the way," Frostbite shouted and Edo quickly ran. "Frostbite? I see that you're here. Then that means—" Übermensch jumped out of the rubble and delivered a punch to All for One who blocked it easily. All for One melted his frozen side using Endeavor's quirk and then crystallized his fist. He punched Übermensch but he didn't budge. Übermensch grabbed All for One's crystallized hand and released a shockwave. Übermensch, quirk, Impact Redial. He can absorb any impact on him and then release the same impact from his palms. Also, he absorbs 50% of the pain he feels, making him a strong and tough opponent. And additionally, he can stack up the impact he absorbed. Sorry, All for One. Your rampage ends here. Übermensch. Is that so? Try this one. All for One shouted and shot crystal spikes. However, they stopped midair and Übermensch backed away from All for One. Thanks, Chronopass. Übermensch thanked her. No problem. Chronopass quirk, Chronos Ruler. Her quirk allows her to slow down or speed up objects. Also, she can speed up herself. All for One's danger detector flared up, and when he looked behind him, Captain Gun fired bullets from his hands that were transformed into a machine gun. The bullets passed All for One's barrier and he received injuries. What? All for One asked in surprise. Surprised, huh? My bullets are spins fast enough to penetrate any barrier, Captain Gun said. Captain Gun, quirk, blazing weaponry. His quirk transforms any part of his body into missile launchers, guns, and cannons. All for One felt pain. Blood was gushing out of the bullet holes. The bullets were removed from his body because of his quirk, and then his regeneration quirk was kicking in, but Monkey King charged at him and started punching. The thing with All for One's regeneration quirk, he must be motionless. Monkey King's barrage of punches and kicks made it impossible to do so, and with the pain he was feeling, he received more injuries from the said punches and kicks. Monkey King quirk. Monkey. The man has the instincts and speed of a monkey. With his support staff that can enlarge and extend, he was a formidable martial artist. All for One tried levitating up, but Übermensch grabbed his leg and slammed him to the ground. He released a shockwave that blew Übermensch away, but then he received more bullet wounds from Captain Gun. He tried shooting crystal spikes, but they stopped in midair again. Then, something fast hit him. He managed to see her because of his enhanced senses quirk, but Chronopass was too fast for him to react. She kept on keeping him off balance while Monkey King attacked. Übermensch would accept any counterattacks from All for One and redirecting it back to him, and then Monkey King would continue his attack. Frostbite would release ice doves that exploded and froze some parts of All for One. This is bad, All for One thought. More ice doves hit him and ice covered some parts of his body. Frostbite quirk, living ice. She can make moving ice which can explode and freeze those around it like an ice bomb. However, she feels cold every time she uses her quirk, therefore her hero costume had warm fur. All for One didn't expect the 5 mightiest heroes would be in the police headquarters, and he didn't expect them to work that well together since they're from different countries. That was why All for One's body was frozen solid and only his mask was unfrozen. He underestimated them and greatly miscalculated. Now, let's see the man behind the mask, Captain Gun said. The Earth's mightiest heroes were the strongest of the strong. It was said that not even All Might could win against the 5 of them if he faced them alone. Therefore it was not a surprise that All for One was in trouble. His body was frozen except for his head, and he was surrounded by 5 powerful heroes. The American, Captain Gun, was reaching for his mask. Out of all the quirks he stole, what could be used to get out of the pinch he was in? The answer came quickly. Ice became steam as All for One's body heated up. Frostbite noticed this immediately. Everyone take cover. Ice golems. Frostbite shouted, and 4 large ice golems appeared and shielded her. Prominence burn. All for One shouted, and searing hot flames vaporized the golems easily. All for One felt his body temperature rising up, but it was good that he got out. He decided to ignore the bullet wounds he had and focused on fighting. Luckily, steam was everywhere due to the ice being vaporized. He saw a movement in his left and teleported towards it. Übermensch was lying on the ground, and when he saw All for One, he rolled to the side and immediately stood up. "You know you can't hurt me," he said. "Let's see about that," All for One replied and teleported to his back. It was too late for Übermensch to react. All for One had his hand placed on Übermensch's head. Intense pain flowed in the German's body as he screamed. The scream alerted the others, and they started moving towards its source. And when they arrived, they saw All for One standing beside a dead Übermensch. "You be yesterday," Monkey King shouted and charged. He unleashed a barrage of punches and kicks to All for One, but after a few rounds, he noticed something strange. All for One didn't seem to feel as much pain as compared to earlier. "Let me try something," All for One said and placed his palm at Monkey King's chest. Monkey King wondered what he must be doing, but he decided to return to punching him when "Impact Redial!" All for One shouted, and Monkey King felt the pain of 100 punches and kicks as he was blown away. Bullets were heading towards him, but he managed to teleport out of the way. All for One was behind Captain Gun and punched him. Captain Gun fired a few shots as he was knocked away, which grazed All for One. Something fast was approaching him, and his enhanced senses knew it was Chronopass, but he couldn't touch her. She was the most annoying one. She can speed up herself, therefore, everything was in slow motion for her. That meant his attacks wouldn't reach her, or so she thought. "Stand Platinum!" All for One shouted, and a spectral muscular being appeared. No matter what he tries, he can't be fast enough to. Chronopass was cut off when Stand Platinum's fist hit her. "OS!" it shouted as it delivered another punch. All for One smirked underneath his mask. Chocho wasn't using Stand Platinum to its full potential. It could actually throw punches as fast as light, but it would be weaker than its usual punch. But it was enough to catch her off guard. "OSA, OSA, 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 OSA," Stand Platinum shouted as it delivered punches at her. All for One then grabbed her head and stole her quirk. He conjured his knife and stabbed Chronopass' heart. "Chronopass!" Monkey King shouted, and his staff enlarged to the size of a building. "Heavenly Dragon Judgment!" Monkey King shouted. All for One enlarged his hands and managed to stop the staff from crushing him. Monkey King was surprised. "Impact Redial, Impact Slam, Shockwave Pulse, Crystal Body, Strengthen Bones, Echo Returner, Impulse, Gigant Wave," All for One said as his right arm became larger and crystallized. He punched the staff and it broke into pieces, further surprising Monkey King. One teleported behind him and used his enlarged fist to punch him to the ground. The ground cracked and Monkey King's fall left a crater. All for One levitated on top of him. "Justice will prevail," Monkey King told him with a glare. "I am justice," All for One replied and killed him with a crystal spike. Ice doves headed towards him, but All for One shot flames at them. Frostbite stood away from him. She didn't get away scot-free from Prominence Burn, as she had burn marks on her face and her clothes got damaged. Missiles rained down from above to All for One and exploded. All for One wasn't fazed by the explosion. Captain Gun appeared from the rubble with his hands being machine guns and his back being missile launchers. "Only 2 remain. I have to be honest. You made me fight more seriously compared to when I fought Endeavor," All for One praised. The two were silent. All for One knew that he couldn't relax yet. His enemies might still have some tricks left on their sleeves. He shot beams at the two heroes and they began moving. Captain Gun fired his bullets while Frostbite made ice doves fly towards All for One. All for One flew upwards and shot powerful beams, with each one getting stronger and larger as compared to the previous. Frostbite was having a great job of dodging until vines grew out of the ground and wrapped around her leg. She tripped and got hit by a beam. All for One teleported towards her and took her quirk. Captain Gun shot more bullets, but All for One used Frostbite as a meat shield and then he slit her throat. "Sheet!" Captain Gun cursed. "Hey, want to see something interesting?" All for One asked. Captain Gun didn't care as he shot more bullets. But then he started caring when his bullets stopped in midair. "How?" "My bullets could penetrate any armor," Captain Gun asked. "There's no barrier." "I stopped the time of your bullets," All for One answered. "He stopped the time of an object? But that's Chronopass power." "Correct. Now watch this." A dozen of ice ravens came out of All for One's hand. Captain Gun tried to shoot them down, but they all avoided it. They exploded upon contact with the hero and froze his arms, making his guns useless. More ice ravens hit him, and before he knew it, his body was frozen solid except for his head. "Guess the tables have turned," All for One said. "You piece of sheet," Captain Gun cursed. "That's your last word? Fine." He grabbed Captain Gun's head and stole his quirk. After that, he transformed his arm into a shotgun and fired it on Captain Gun's head. Investigator Edo couldn't believe what he saw. The Earth's mightiest heroes were nothing against All for One? He felt fear when All for One turned his attention towards him. The investigator wanted to run but his legs froze. All for One walked closer and Investigator Edo aimed his gun at him. "You do know that it's useless," All for One said, and with a flick of his finger, the gun disassembled into pieces. Investigator Edo fell to the ground. What do you want?" he asked. "Something that's very rare." "Your quirk, that is," All for One answered. Everything clicked in the investigator's mind. That was why All for One started small. He had to gather quirks. And when he became stronger, he began stealing pro-heroes' quirks and even endeavors. He kept on challenging people to get more quirks while spreading fear. Who are you?" Investigator Edo asked. "I suppose you deserve to know me. After all, you tried so hard to investigate about me, from being a nameless serial killer to being All for One inch." He removed his mask. Dark green hair was seen after the mask was removed. All for One had 4 symmetrical freckles on his cheeks. The noticeable thing was his green eyes. They were filled with burning hatred. "I am Midoriya Izuku, the man you feared as All for One," Izuku said as he placed his hand on Investigator Edo's head and grinned maniacally. While All for One was busy at the police headquarters, the League of Villains were standing on top of a building. Dabi, Shigaraki, Spinner, Himiko, Twice, and even High-End were waiting for a certain convoy. "I hate this," Shigaraki said as he scratched his neck. All for One gave the League their first mission. All they had to do was kill a certain hero while he would destroy Mizudafu's police headquarters. Although he understood All for One's intentions, he hated following someone around. "Do we really have to do this? It'll leave a bad taste in my mouth," Twice said. "This job is boring," Himiko told them. "We've got no choice. We agreed to be in an alliance with that guy, so we got to do our part," Dabi said. "Must kill," High-End muttered. The said convoy was already in their sights. 4 armored cars, 10 police cars, and 20 police motorcycles were part of the convoy. And it was all for the protection of an elderly woman known as Recovery Girl. If All Might was the symbol of peace, Recovery Girl was the symbol of kindness. With a gentle quirk and nice attitude, she was admired by many people and even helped pro-heroes and citizens get over their injuries. She's been in almost every disaster relief center and hospitals during her life. That was why she was an important figure in society. Recovery Girl was heading to the evacuation site of Shiketsu's students. Although they escaped, some of them had broken bones and other injuries. As someone who had a healing quirk, it was her responsibility to make sure they recover, especially that their upperclassmen were killed and their school was destroyed. At least, that was what she was supposed to do when blue flames blocked the road. The convoy stopped and 6 figures jumped down from a building. "Which one is that old woman's car?" Dabi asked. "Doesn't matter. We'll destroy everything," Shigaraki answered. The police officers got out of their cars and motorcycles and aimed their guns at the League. The League of Villains. If you are aiming for Recovery Girl, you have bad luck. The police are not alone in this one, a police officer said as a blonde woman with slit pupils and sharp teeth walked beside him. "The number 10 hero, Ryukyu. Not good. We are in trouble." "Not really," Twice shouted. Ryukyu transformed into her dragon form. "We won't let you harm Recovery Girl," she declared. "High-End. Release them," Shigaraki ordered, and from High-End's body, 9 nomes appeared. Dabi shot flames at a police officer and burned him to death. Spinner and Himiko each took a target and sliced them, killing them instantly, while Twice knocked a few police officers. The police tried their best. They tried shooting their guns, but the nomes were unaffected. Ryukyu attacked the nomes with her claws and knocked some of them away. "High-End. Kill her," Shigaraki ordered, and High-End flew swiftly towards Ryukyu. It punched Ryukyu's face and knocked her back. Being surprised by its strength, Ryukyu tried to swat High-End away with her claw, but it easily dodged it. High-End then unleashed a barrage of punches which hurt Ryukyu. Ryukyu then learned the hard way that the Nomu she was fighting was the Nomu that Endeavor had a hard time defeating. She gritted her teeth. A powerful foe and the League of Villains were in front of her. They could have requested for more heroes in protecting Recovery Girl, but they believed that Ryukyu was enough. Because of Endeavor and other pro-heroes' deaths, the crime rate was rising and other heroes were busy. Also, Recovery Girl's journey was a secret, so no one was supposed to know beside UA and other important figures. Himiko grinned as she killed more and more police officers. Shigaraki turned all of those who opposed him into dust, and Dabi burned the helpless police officers who stood in his face. The SAT emerged from the 3 armored cars and started shooting with their heavy weaponry. The Nomus protected the members of the League. So the last one contains Recovery Girl, Dabi said. Now let's clear this and go home, Shigaraki told them. The Nomus charged at the SAT and one by one killed them. The SAT's weapons were ineffective against the Nomus and they were ripped to pieces. Police officers watched in horror as Japan's proud SAT were killed. The Nomus turned their attention to the police officers and some of them began running away. Leave them. We have to a mission here, Shigaraki said. Don't falter. If we can't protect an elderly woman, then how can we call ourselves as police officers? A police officer shouted and everyone agreed with him. Fools, Shigaraki muttered. Meanwhile, High-End and Ryukyu were fighting. Ryukyu had a hard time landing a blow on the Nomu since it was moving as fast as a fly. It would occasionally land a strong blow on the dragon and she would try to counter, but it would just avoid like a fly. This is getting nowhere, Ryukyu thought. Boring. Are there stronger heroes? High-End said. High-End extended its arms and penetrated Ryukyu's tough scales. She groaned in pain, but she tried biting the Nomu. It got away and then punched her. It continued releasing punches her. Before long, Ryukyu was down on the ground in her human form. High-End was no longer interested in her since she wasn't strong enough to satisfy it. That was why it disobeyed the Shigaraki's order of killing her. It walked towards its master. All of the police officers and SAT were dead and all that remained was an armored car. Shigaraki disintegrated the door and saw a short, elderly woman sitting on a chair. She was wearing a nurse's uniform and had a cane. So my time has come, Recovery Girl said. Shigaraki and the others were silent. Twice and Spinner were uncomfortable with killing an old lady while Dabi and Shigaraki couldn't care less. Himiko thought that killing her would be boring and wondered whether she was worth their effort. Toga. Do it, Shigaraki ordered. Why me? Himiko asked. That guy told us to leave a clean corpse so that she can be identified, Shigaraki answered. Fian, Himiko replied. She walked towards Recovery Girl and the old woman faced her. I hope that I served my purpose well. The rest is up to you. Make sure you make All Might and me proud by saving the world from the despair known as All for One and the League of Villains, Recovery Girl thought, and her life ended. The news of the Earth's mightiest heroes' deaths spread worldwide. Other countries were now aware of what threat All for One brings. However, they decided to not help Japan despite their pleas and focused on strengthening their defenses. They couldn't afford to send more powerful heroes to their deaths because if they do, the criminals in their country would rampage. Even though they wanted to deal with All for One and help Japan, the other countries decided to keep their human resources. All Might punched a nearby wall in frustration and anger after he watched the news. Sheet! He shouted in anger. Gran Torino had never seen him like in that state before. The smiling symbol of peace was actually feeling powerless, frustrated, angry, and sorrowful. All of these emotions came out when he watched the news. The 5 powerful heroes from different countries, dubbed as the Earth's mightiest heroes, were all killed by none other than All for One. All Might was once part of the Earth's mightiest heroes before he retired. He had sparred with Ubermensch, talked American things with Captain Gun, drank tea with Chronopass, trained Frostbite, and learned a bit of martial arts from Monkey King. They were one of his friends as they took on many dangerous opponents together. And now he lost them. If he hadn't been careless, All for One wouldn't have gotten away from him. To make things worse, he was now powerless to stop him and he could only rely on his successor. But the loss of his friends was not the only thing that dealt a blow to his heart. He found out that Recovery Girl was killed by the League of Villains, the ones he failed to stop during the USJ incident and in Kamino. Recovery Girl was an important figure in Japan. Her healing quirk was beneficial for society and helped many heroes and citizens in her life. Even All Might was one of the many people she helped. During the time he was training with the strict Gran Torino, during his reckless hero days, after his first fight against All for One, and even taking care of his weakening body, Recovery Girl was with him. Tears dropped from All Might's eyes as he punched the wall repeatedly. Sheet, 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 he repeated, cursing as he punched the wall. Toshinori. Calm yourself, Gran Torino told him. How can I be calm? That man, he already took many important things. And if I didn't let him get away, none of these would have happened. Families would still be intact. Students would be enjoying their school life. Heroes wouldn't have died. And Recovery Girl would still be alive. All Might stopped punching because his fists were bleeding. All Might was right. If he was more careful, society would still be at peace. He was to be blamed for everything. Don't think like that, Toshinori. You couldn't have avoided it. What matters now is that we should find a way to deal with. In other words, focus on training your successor. If there's anyone who has a chance against him, it would be someone who has won for all, Gran Torino told him and managed to calm All Might down. You're right. That's all I can do. The door opened and Nizu entered the room. What's wrong? Gran Torino asked. Bakugo Katsuki is missing, Nizu answered. ####. The moment he woke up, Katsuki knew that something important was missing. It was as if something was stolen from him. And with that in mind, he decided to search for it. With Aizawa out for a short coffee break and with his scarred arms and legs fully functioning, he decided to find it. However, the hospital he was in was rather strict and wouldn't allow him to go outside. That was why he tried to jump from his room on the second floor and use his quirk to fly away. At least, that was his plan before he crashed into the ground. What happened? Katsuki asked in his mind. He tried flying again, but nothing happened. Katsuki was feeling uneasy. When he concentrates, explosions should spark from his hands, but this time, nothing happened. He tried concentrating again and even shouted to further his concentration, but like before, nothing happened. What's going on? You're now quirkless. That's what's going on, a voice behind him said. Katsuki turned around and saw a person in a green hoodie, blue jeans, and red shoes. He had a messy green hair and round green eyes. The person had 4 freckles on his cheeks which were symmetrical to each other. Midoriya Izuku. Katsuki remembered the person he once called Deku. In their younger days, he had fun bullying the poor quirkless kid. The last time he saw him was when they graduated from junior high school. After that, he didn't care about that extra. I heard you were in a hospital, so I brought you some gifts, Izuku said and showed him a plastic cellophane with some mangas and energy drinks. What do you mean that I am now quirkless? Katsuki asked. Oh, it's like I said. You're quirkless. You don't have your beloved quirk, Izuku answered. Instead of listening to what Izuku meant, Katsuki turned to anger and grabbed Izuku's collar. Don't mess with me, Deku. What makes you say that I'm quirkless? Katsuki shouted. An explosion occurred out of nowhere and knocked Katsuki to the ground. When he opened his eyes, he saw that the person in front of him didn't look the same as fear entered his mind. The same hatred he saw in that man's eye was present in Izuku's eyes. How did I know? Because I stole it from you, Izuku answered, and a few explosions sparked on his hand. Also, don't FING touch me, you quirkless loser, he added. Katsuki couldn't believe what was happening. His former childhood friend was actually All for One. And here he was, powerless and helpless against the most powerful villain in Japan. Don't worry. I'm not here to kill you. I'm just visiting and checking on you, Izuku said. The I just wanted to see your prideful face as you find out that you're one of the weak and pathetic quirkless extras you once thought to be as pebbles in your path to be a hero. So how does it feel, huh? How does it feel to be an insignificant pebble? Izuku asked. You be yesterday, Katsuki shouted and threw a punch, but Izuku caught it. Oh, how the mighty Bakugo fallen. Newsflash, you couldn't even defeat me with your quirk. How do you expect to put a scratch on me now that you're quirkless? Izuku kicked Katsuki's stomach, which made him go down to the ground. He then stepped on Katsuki's lowered head and grinded his shoe on him. How refreshing. After all these years, I managed to get a small payback against you. But this is not enough, Izuku said. I'll let you in on my wonderful plan. Pretty soon, I'll destroy society. How do you ask? By destroying the last bit of hope in this country. And of course you'll be there. You're the VIP along with All Might. I'll crush you, him, and society all at once, Izuku told the struggling Katsuki. He stomped his food and Katsuki stopped struggling. Izuku placed his index finger on Katsuki's forehead. It then glowed and soon faded. This will keep you from spoiling the surprise, Izuku said and teleported away. Some time passed and All Might, Nizu, Gran Torino, and Aizawa found Katsuki. Young Bakugo. Are you all right? All Might asked. Katsuki opened his eyes and then he noticed something strange. His memory was hazy. He knew that he met someone he used to know and then everything was a blank. However, he recalled one sentence from their encounter. You're quirkless, a voice echoed in his head, and even though it was just a faint memory, it felt real and somehow, he already accepted the fact. All Might? Katsuki weakly called out. What is it? Can someone without a quirk become a hero? A heavy atmosphere lingered in the air of Class 1A's classroom. None of the students were smiling and all of them were silently looking down at the ground. Silence ruled as tension and fear crept in their bodies. Everyone heard of what happened to Shiketsu and everyone knew what happened to other hero schools. It would be stupid to think that UA wouldn't be targeted too. Morning, Aizawa greeted the class. Seeing the current state of his students, he didn't bother waiting for them to greet him back. It was to be expected. Even he was pushed to his limits. His body was already tired from all the sleepless nights spent in meetings with other faculty and police, and he guarded the dorms all night waiting for any alarm to set off. If he could be granted one wish, he would want to sleep in his comfortable sleeping bag even if for just an hour. As you've heard, Shiketsu is destroyed, the Earth's mightiest heroes died and Recovery Girl was killed. Things are looking grim. The media is criticizing the heroes, police, and hero schools, Aizawa said. The students lowered their heads more and their expressions looked even grimmer. They all loved Recovery Girl since she was a sweet old lady who cared for their health. Some of them admired the Earth's mightiest heroes. Others felt a sense of rivalry against other students from different schools. But all for one stole everything from them. But could they do something? The answer was no. They were just first-year students who had provisional licenses. Top heroes were all slaughtered when they tried to fight him. They couldn't hold a candle against all for one strength. Even if the hero schools are getting destroyed one after another, UA will not close down, Aizawa told them. This surprised the entire class. Their rational teacher was actually going against logic. Normally, the correct decision was to shut down the school in order to save the students. UA is the last pillar of hope in this country. Hero agencies across Japan are closing down one by one because of fear. Crime rates have gone up due to the lack of heroes. That is why UA must continue to stand. To show the world that we have not given up, Aizawa added. Even with that inspiring speech, the students were still filled with despair. Aizawa looked at their eyes one by one and then placed a stack of papers on his table. This is a form. You have the right to choose to remain here or leave. UA will definitely be attacked by all for one and your lives are in danger. Normally, this would lead to the closure of the school. But thanks to your upperclassmen and Principal Nizu's convincing, the school will continue on. However, all students are given this form which allows them to make a choice. Whether you leave or not, it's up to you. But remember this, it's okay to run away, Aizawa said as he handed out the forms. You have the whole day to decide since there are no classes. You can also train, pack your things, or talk to your friends. You must decide soon since we don't know when all for one will attack. If you decide to leave, don't come back. Leave as soon as you can. Those who want to stay, attend class tomorrow. And with that, Aizawa left the room. Everyone silently looked at the forms they received. This was their ticket way out. They didn't have to die a meaningless death. They could just decide to leave and have a safe life. However, they remembered the snarky Katsuki. Even though he had a nasty attitude, he was still their classmate. And when they heard what all for one did to him, they were enraged. I'm going outside to get a bit of fresh air, Ijiro said and got up. I'll walk around, Fumikage told everyone. One by one, they left the classroom. Achiko walked around Yue. Her heart was pounding and she panicked whenever she heard a sound, thinking it might be all for one. She looked at the form that was handed to her. A part of her wanted to leave so that her family wouldn't get worried. She wanted to run away from all of the danger and live a safe life. However, she remembered a recent memory. A few days ago, the class heard that Katsuki was well and so, they decided to visit him altogether. They imagined him to be angry and chase them out of his room the moment he sees them. What they didn't expect was the lifeless eyes in Katsuki's face. It was as if something important was stolen from him. His arms had deep scars on it and Katsuki was silent the whole time. He didn't even notice them until Ijiro called out. Katsuki looked like he was frustrated and he asked everyone to leave him alone in a weak voice. That memory was around in Achiko's head and she couldn't just shake it off. Getting out of her flashback, she noticed that she was in the training ground where explosions occurred. Achiko ran towards the source and saw Shoto firing a prominence burn level of flames. Afterwards, he would cool himself down and shoot the biggest and coldest ice he could make to the point his other half would be frozen solid. Shoto would release another prominence burn which would heat him up again. Achiko knew that constant changes in the body's temperature would surely lead to disaster. But she knew the reason why Shoto was doing this. It was clear that Shoto hated his father. When All Might retired, his hatred seemed to subside and he even cheered for him against the fight with High End. Maybe he gave his father a second chance to make amends. Maybe his father was actually making progress. Achiko could never find out. And Shoto will never see his father again. Achiko left the training area only to see a huge tornado at the open field. When she arrived there, she saw the weird Shiketsu student who was named Inasa Yorashi. She heard from the teachers that he fell out from the sky and informed them that Shiketsu was destroyed. Ever since then he was in Yue's care. Achiko knew what Inasa felt. She knew that he hated All for One for taking precious things from him. It was like he was robbed of his family. Everywhere Achiko went, unease was there. Students were discussing on whether they should leave or not. Some of them were rushing to pack things. And then she saw Ijiro. Uraraka, Ijiro greeted. Kirishima, Achiko greeted back. Are you going to stay? He asked. I don't know. How about you? She asked back. I am scared. All for One killed many strong people already and I doubt I can handle a single attack from him. Achiko was about to agree with him and decide to leave too but seeing Bakugo like that, crushed and destroyed both outside and inside made me angry. If I backed down against someone who hurt my friend, I wouldn't be able to call myself a man. Ijiro declared and wrote on his form that he would stay. He then waved goodbye to Achiko and she decided to continue walking around. Achiko saw Tenya drinking orange juice. Hey Uraraka, Tenya greeted. Have you decided? She asked. Tenya became silent and he took a sip from his orange juice. My brother. He got defeated by the hero killer and was paralyzed from the waist down. If not for Todoroki, I would have died and strayed from the path of being a hero. All for One is powerful villain. And as a hero, I will put an end to his reign of terror even if it's the last thing I do. Not because I hate him, it's because it's my duty as a hero, as ingenium, Tenya told her and she saw that he already signed the stay option. Achiko sat down on a bench and took a deep breath. She picked up her cell phone and dialed her parents. Achiko, are you okay? We've seen the news and things are dangerous over there. His father asked her. I'm fine, Dad. It's just that. I'm scared and confused, Achiko told her father. Tell me everything. She told him what she was going on with her. The form in her classmates' answers made her confused. Achiko wanted to live for her family but she doesn't want to abandon her friends. What should I do? She asked while tears streamed down her face. Achiko, listen carefully. Your mother and I want you to live, of course. That's what all parents want for their child. But I want you to know that you're allowed to do what your heart tells you to do, her father advised. But I don't know what to do. No, you already know it. You're just not listening to your heart. Your mother and I am proud of you, so proud that we always brag about you to our neighbors. All we want for you is to live a life without regrets. Achiko's heart clenched. The answer was already clear. That was the only way she could live without regret. I love you, Achiko said. I love you too, her father replied. I love you, honey, her mother, who was also listening on the conversation, said. I love you too. Hashtag hashtag hashtag. The next morning came and Aizawa trudged to the classroom. He heard that most of the general ed students, business students, and support students left. Aizawa was expecting his classroom to be empty. But to his surprise, everyone was there. Hey, sensei, Aijiro greeted. You guys, what are you doing? Aizawa asked. We are heroes. Against a villain that threatens society itself, we will rise up and defeat him, Momo said. No matter how dangerous it is, we will save the citizens, Denki added. In order to protect their smiles, Aoyama smiled. And live without regrets, Kirishima hardened his fists. That's what makes us heroes, Uraraka said with a determined look. The door burst open and boy with an ash-blonde hair entered. Bakugo, Aijiro shouted and smiled. I heard what you extras said. Defeating all for one? You're crazy, Katsuki told them angrily, which immediately silenced the room. Don't do crazy shit without me. I'm the one who will bring that fucker down, Katsuki added. The class smiled and hope lit up. However, Aizawa looked at the quirkless Katsuki worriedly. Katsuki was spared by all for one for a reason, and he might not receive another mercy from the heartless villain. He didn't expect him to return after what All Might answered him to his question. But having him around lightened up the mood and he decided to let it slide. Far away from Yue, a green-haired boy stood. My dream school. How ironic. The same school I wanted to be part of is going to be destroyed by me, he muttered. His clothes turned into a black suit and a black helmet with small industrial pipes covered his head. Thonged is my dream. All for one casually walked to the gate of Yue. One step in and the alarms activated. In response to the noisy alarms, he just snapped his finger and explosions occurred. Robots of different sizes appeared. All for one side and swiped his right hand. The robots exploded and fell to the ground. Is this all what Yue can offer me? He asked. A bullet stopped in front of him. All for one saw several pro-heroes walked from behind the fallen robots. Hound Dog, number 13, Cementos, Present Mike, Eraserhead, Midnight, Snipe, Ectoplasm, Power Loader, and Vlad King stood in front of the villain. You're actually polite enough to knock on our door before barging in, Cementos said. This was once my dream school, so a little respect would be nice, All for One replied. Aizawa, Vlad King shouted and charged at All for One. Eraserhead used his quirk to erase All for One's powers while Vlad King readied a punch. How naive. All for One shot beams to the charging heroes from both of his hands and they were knocked back, feeling pain all over their body. What happened? Why didn't Eraserhead's quirk work? Are you sure that you didn't blink? Present Mike asked. No. I'm sure I used my quirk, Eraserhead answered. Then how? All for One chuckled at their surprised faces. You do know about Investigator Edo's quirk, right? All for One asked. Investigator Edo was a part of the police force until that guy killed him. If I recall correctly, his quirk was... Eraserhead's face was filled with shock when he found out the truth. Everyone, be careful. He might be the strongest villain to ever exist in this world. He's got Investigator Edo's nullification quirk. He warned them. How did he get that quirk? Midnight asked. There's only one answer. He stole it, Ectoplasm answered. Stole them? You mean that he isn't a man born with multiple quirks, but instead, he is a man with one quirk that steals others' quirks? Power Loader asked. All for One clapped his hands. As expected of Yue's teachers. Nullificatoin, Impact Redial, Living Ice, and Crystal Body are a few of the many quirks I stole. And if I want to, I can steal all of your quirks, All for One said. Oh no you won't. Midnight shouted and used her quirk, making her skin release pink gas. However, All for One wasn't affected. Midnight. He has Investigator Edo's quirk. Nullification is a famous quirk since it makes non-damaging quirks ineffective to its user. Brainwashing, quirk erasure, and even somnambulist would be useless against him, Eraserhead told her. Cementos made the cement ground surround all for one, but the quirk thief destroyed the cement dome. Cementos made multiple thick cement walls, but a beam from all for one destroyed them all and hit Cementos. He received a heavy injury which later caused his death. Cementos! Diminu! Vlad King charged and formed a giant fist made out of blood. All for one touched the fist and it froze. Vlad King's face became blue. What did you do? Midnight angrily asked. Oh, nothing. I just froze his own blood. His quirk does not interest me after all. Nor does that cement person, he answered. Midnight, Aizawa. Evacuate the students, number 13 told them. What are you saying? We can beat him together, Midnight refused. Number 13 is right. We have to leave. All for one has nullification, so we're the useless ones in this battle. And we know now why all for one attacks hero schools, Eraserhead said. Aizawa is right. All for one is gathering even more powerful quirks. We'll hold him off here. Go! Ectoplasm shouted as Snipe loaded his gun and Hound Dog howled. Biting her lower lip, Midnight ran. Hound Dog charged at all for one while Snipe shot bullets. The bullets stopped in midair before they could reach him, and all for one landed a strong and fast punch on Hound Dog. Ectoplasm's clones surrounded him, but all for one released a strong shockwave which instantly defeated all of them. All for one took a step and then a pitfall formed. He managed to levitate himself before falling, and using his sonar quirk, he found out that there were a lot of holes in the ground. However, the digger must have underestimated him since all of the holes were connected like an ant colony. Die. All for one shot a small orange ball into the hole, and then a huge explosion occurred which shook the ground and destroyed it. Power loader! Ectoplasm shouted, worried for his friend who was buried and crushed underground. Present Mike roared, and with his quirk, it became a destructive sound wave. All for one wasn't fazed with his attack and teleported behind him. Look out! Snipe shouted, but it was too late. Present Mike looked behind him, and all for one caught his throat, destroying his accessory on his neck. Your voice is annoying, all for one said. Mike! All for one ripped out the energetic and friendly hero's throat, and the poor hero never spoke again as his limbs became limp. A strong gust of wind was pulling all for one, and when he turned behind, number 13 was using their quirk, Black Hole. Mike was a good man. Quirks are not meant to harm people. That is why villains like you are what's destroying society, number 23 said. Is that so? Or is it the hero's fault for not protecting the society which trusts them? All for one asked. The intensity increased, and all for one was getting pulled faster. He then summoned his own black hole. What? Number 13 asked in surprise. This is a pretty nifty quirk that I got from your father, all for one answered. Number 13 realized what he meant. You were probably busy with work to check with your family, he added. You be yesterday, number 13 shouted and increased the quirk's power. All for one made his black hole stronger, and in the clash of two black holes, all for one won and killed the hero who rescued many people. Snipe shot more bullets, but they stopped in midair. No good, huh? Snipe muttered as he reloaded. Hound Dog charged and engaged in a fistfight with all for one while Snipe tried to at least hit the villain with his bullets. Ectoplasm would surround all for one with his clones. They were doing well until... This is getting boring, all for one said and snapped his finger. A huge explosion occurred and knocked everyone away. Hound Dog was bleeding, Snipe broke his arm, and Ectoplasm was on the ground. All for one approached Snipe, who was down on the ground and aiming his gun at him. Any last words? All for one asked, and a ball of blue light formed on his index finger as he pointed it at Snipe's head. I lived an honorable life, Snipe said. Before he knew it, a tentacle wrapped around Snipe and pulled him away from all for one. A boy with dark blue hair and pointy ears with tentacles for arms stood beside the hero. And who are you supposed to be? All for one asked. One of the big three, Sun Eater, Amakiji Tamaki angrily announced. Seeing his teachers injured or dead, Tamaki's anger soared. He was a quiet and nervous guy, but there wasn't a trace of his personality in his face as his eyes were flaming with anger. The school wouldn't allow him to chase a powerful villain, and he preferred not doing it, but his teachers were now dead and his school was about to be destroyed. Amajiki, what are you doing here? Snipe asked. Hato rounded up student volunteers to fight all for one, and while they're getting information, it's up to me to buy time, Sun Eater answered. ####. What do you mean you're not escaping? Midnight asked. UA is our home and the last hope in the society all for one is destroying. If we back down now, we'll never be able to face ourselves in the mirror, a third-year student said. You handed us the forms and we decided to stay. And I'm staying even if it's the last thing I do, Ijiro added. You seem to misunderstand something. The forms were supposed to ask whether you'll continue to study in UA. It didn't mean that you'll fight all for 1 inch, Eraserhead told them. Sorry, Sensei. But we just can't. Many have suffered under all for one. As a hero, we will not back down. We will live a hero's life without any regrets, Achiko replied. A huge explosion occurred in the distance. Tamaki is having a hard time. Everyone, be prepared, Nijire ordered everyone. Eraserhead and Midnight knew that there was no convincing the students and decided to fight with them. If you think it becomes too dangerous, don't be ashamed to run, Eraserhead told them, and they all nodded. ####. Tentacles coated with crab shells thrashed at all for one, but he dodged it. He shot out a beam, but Tamaki covered his body with a clam shell. Tamaki then transformed his feet into a frog's legs and jumped away. His arms turned into tentacles and lunged at all for one, but the villain swatted them away with his large crystallized fist. All for one shot multiple beams at Sun Eater, but the hero took cover behind a giant clam shell. That's quite a nice quirk. It seems that you being part of the Big Three is not a joke, All for One said. Don't underestimate you, Tamaki shouted, and his arms turned into 4 large tentacles that were covered in barnacles. Chimera Kraken, he shouted, and his tentacles thrashed the area as All for One dodged. Tamaki managed to hit All for One a few times. All for One then teleported behind Tamaki, but before he could punch him, Tamaki jumped high up and grew wings. I'm aware of your multiple quirks and how well you use them. That's why I went to an all-you-can-eat buffet before I got to school today, Tamaki said. So I take it that you manifest whatever you eat, All for One asked. Yes. Eat this. All for One became too fast for Tamaki to react. Mixing Impact Redial, Impact Pulse, Echo Slam, Crystal Fist, and several strength-enhancing quirks, All for One punched the living daylights out of Tamaki. The hero formed a huge crater when he crashed to the ground. All for One landed slowly on the ground and walked casually towards where Tamaki fell. Sun Eater managed to stand despite the pain in his body. I think I broke a bone or two, he thought. Is this what you can offer me, hero? All for One asked. Tamaki panted and his head was bleeding. His vision was getting blurry and he felt that he would collapse in any minute. The only thing that was keeping him standing was his resolve as a hero. A gunshot noise was heard, and when he looked, he saw Snipe holding a gun and a bullet was floating in midair in front of All for One. You're still alive. I forgot, All for One said, and he pointed his finger at Snipe. The floating bullet changed direction and pierced Snipe's head, killing him. Snipe! Tamaki shouted. Hound Dog appeared out of nowhere and had another fistfight with All for One. Forced internment giant bites. Ectoplasm shouted, and a giant clone of himself appeared out of nowhere. Hound Dog kept All for One busy, and the giant clone tried to step on All for One. You guys are just pests, All for One said, and he punched a hole through Hound Dog's chest. He then teleported in front of the giant's face and shot a strong beam of energy. All for One faced Ectoplasm, but the hero tried kicking. His prosthetic feet were caught by the quirk thief and were crushed. All for One grabbed Ectoplasm's neck and snapped it. You busy! Tamaki shouted and ate everything in the small bags in his belt. He transformed into a large creature that was a mix of an octopus, crab, clam, snake, and other animals, which surprised Izuku since he never thought that those animals were edible. All for One shot a beam, but it didn't do any harm on the transformed Tamaki. He then used his enlarged crystallized fist to punch him, but it didn't have any effect. Tentacles wrapped around All for One, but he released a shockwave which got him out. I can't destroy the tentacles that easily, huh? All for One muttered. His arms turned into sharp crystal blades, and using Chronopass quirk, he sped himself up and sliced the tentacles. A few tentacles were cut off, but they regenerated quickly. How troublesome! Ice ravens shot out from All for One's hands and exploded at the tentacles, freezing them. Larger ice ravens hit Tamaki's body, but he didn't falter. All for One was getting annoyed. The hero before him was tough. He'd shoot crystal spikes, but they didn't pierce Tamaki's tough armor. Not good. Maintaining this form takes too much energy. But if I stop now, Hado and the others will die. Where are you? Tamaki thought. Let's see if you can handle this, All for One said and shot powerful beams one by one. Tamaki was slowly getting pushed to the ground. He tried getting back up, but the beams started getting more powerful and powerful. And he was not only bombarded with beams, crystal spikes pierced his armor, and he felt pain. Not enough. I have to protect them. Yue, my underclassmen, and Hado. Until Mirio arrives, I will not back down. I am Sun Eater, Tamaki declared in his mind. He grabbed All for One's arms with his damaged tentacles and slammed him to the ground. Tamaki trashed his hardened tentacles to the spot where All for One fell. It was then he reached his limit. Tamaki returned to his normal human form and staggered. A cold feeling washed over him as he felt a presence behind him. He turned his face around and his feet froze in fear. You're quite good. I'll give you that, All for One said, and his clothes were a mess and even his helmet had a few cracks on it. His arm turned into a sharp crystal blade and stabbed Sun Eater. Tamaki fell to the ground and coughed. You're a good one. I'll leave you to die slowly as you contemplate your life. That's the greatest gift I'll give to you, All for One said and walked away. A minute. Is this all I can do? Am I this weak? Sorry. Everyone. Sorry. Hado. Sorry. Mirio. Sorry? Tamaki thought and closed his eyes.